Chapter 381. On the Arena of Life and Death. The Rank 3 Wuzong was covered in layers of ice and turned into a lifelike ice sculpture. Below the arena, all the cultivators widened their eyes. Oh my god! That female Iron Bone disciple was actually an ice martial cultivator. She was able to freeze her opponent in ice. Caw caw caw. After a while, the ice on Wuzong's body fell off and he fainted from the cold. At this point, the battle was over. Lu Qianqian walked down the arena of life and death without even looking at her opponent. From the start to the end, it took at most 10 seconds. Not bad, not bad. Jun Changshao said, "You've become much stronger." "I'm still far from being able to compete with the Sect Master," Lu Qianqian said. She was speaking the truth. After all, if it were her, she definitely wouldn't be able to defeat a Rank 2 martial king. Jun Changshao walked up the arena of life and death and looked at Elder Zhan. He clasped his hands and said, "My apologies. My Iron Bone disciple won 10 matches by luck." Everyone's mouth twitched. After 10 matches, they realized something in common. None of them were evenly matched. The Iron Bone disciple didn't fall into a passive position either. She either had the upper hand or crushed her opponent. This was simply too terrifying. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. Elder Zhan's face was extremely ugly. They had come with such great momentum, but in the end, they did not win a single one of the 10 battles. Their face had been thrown to their grandmother's house. According to our previous agreement, Jun Changshao said, "Everyone, please return the way you came and mind your own business." Elder Zhan felt even worse. He came to Azure Sun County under the orders of the branch master, but he failed to eliminate the Iron Bone disciple. How was he supposed to report back? Not admit defeat and not compromise? He could do that. It was also in line with the demonic faction style. However, the Iron Bone disciple wasn't weak either. There was an elder who defeated him, a sect master who defeated Elder Gua, and a group of powerful disciples. If he fought head-on, he would have to pay a heavy price, not to mention whether he could eliminate the Iron Bone disciple or not. What should he do? After hesitating for a while, Elder Zhan clasped his hands and said sullenly, "Farewell." He admitted defeat. Let's follow the rules of Jianghu. Jun Changshao secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Now that he had finally gotten rid of this problem, he could once again take his disciples out to show off and have fun without any worries. The Azure Sun County cultivators also felt a huge weight lifted off their shoulders as they felt even more respect for Sect Master Jun. 20 heretical sects and tens of thousands of heretical cultivators came from Huayang County. It was a deadly situation, but it was turned around and resolved. Elder Zhan did not dare to risk his life to launch an attack on Iron Bone's horn. He could only return the way he came. However, just as he was about to leave, a young man walked out of the forest. It was a man with a fair complexion and a slender figure. He looked like an elegant young master from an aristocratic family. Elder Zhan's expression changed and he exclaimed, "Elder Bai." Ah! Gua Digang, who was being carried, endured the pain and tried his best to raise his head. When he saw the person's appearance clearly, his eyes were filled with shock, and he hurriedly closed his eyes and pretended to faint. Jun Changshao frowned. This person was about the same age as him, but the aura he emitted was much stronger than Elder Zhan's. Sect Master Jiangya, who looked lazy, had a serious expression as he transmitted his voice. "This person is an expert from the Deicide Hall headquarters. His strength is probably," the system said, "peak martial king." Jun Changshao was startled, and then the corner of his mouth twitched. What kind of joke was this? This guy who didn't even look like he was fully grown was a peak martial king? Like a young man strolling in the forest, he suddenly dragged an afterimage and stopped in front of Elder Zhan at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. "Pa!" He slapped his face and scolded, "A bunch of trash." A palm print appeared on Elder Zhan's right cheek, and he felt a burning pain as he said, "Elder Bai, please calm down." His voice was trembling, and cold sweat seeped out of his forehead and back. Elder Bai flicked his black hair and said, the division leader was worried that there would be a change in the situation, so he sent me over to supervise. As expected, he guessed right. Elder Bai, Elder Zhan said in fear, this iron bone is very strong. I am worried that if I use force, it will cause a lot of damage. He was also an elder, but only a branch elder. The young man in front of him was an elder of the headquarters. In terms of rank, he was much higher than him. So, Elder Bai said indifferently, is this the reason why you cowered? His sharp eyes stared at Elder Zhan, causing him to be extremely afraid, and his legs began to tremble. The 20 upper echelons of the evil sects behind him were also uneasy. They had already seen the golden token on the young man's waist with the words Deicide engraved on it. They realized that he was definitely an expert from the Deicide Hall's headquarters. The martial artists of Qingyang County didn't know. But when they saw a martial king keeping quiet in front of him, they guessed that the other party's status must be high, and his strength must not be weak. This is troublesome. Xie Guangquan and Ai Shang, who had just relaxed, frowned again. As expected. Elder Bai raised his head and looked at Jun Changshao on the life and death arena. He smiled faintly and said, today, iron bone must be removed from the Jianghu. His voice was gentle and unquestionable. All the martial artists had the same thought, this person would definitely do what he said. How strong is this guy? Jun Changshao said. The middle grade strength increased talisman still had about 30 minutes left. If the other party insisted on coming, at most, he would take out the green dragon crescent blade and fight with him. The system said, an extreme peak martial king, not including martial skills, is at least 3 million gene. Fuck. Sect leader Jun cursed in his heart. He was only 5 million with the 10 times strength increased talisman. There was a difference of 2 million gene between him and the other party. Even if he activated the special effect of the green dragon crescent blade, he definitely wouldn't be able to win. It wasn't easy to deal with this group of evil sect martial cultivators, but in the end, a peak martial king appeared. Was he destined to bring his disciples to hide in the sect protection array? Friend. Jun Changshao said, we have an agreement. Out of 10 battles, my iron bone will win 10 battles. From now on, we won't interfere with each other. It would be best if he could rely on words to resolve it. Elder Bai smiled and said, that's your agreement with the trash, not with me. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Damn it, do you want to force me to use my unstoppable blade? No. When the green dragon crescent blade special effect was activated, it was mistaken for a divine weapon with a spirit. If he pulled out the 40-meter-long blade, even if he could deal with this peak martial king, it would definitely cause more trouble if word got out. He couldn't win, so he could only enter the sect protection array. Disciples, listen up. Sect leader Jun hurriedly sent a voice transmission to the group. Everyone, return to the sect. A wise man knows when to retreat. I can't afford to offend him, but I can't hide. Swish. 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 The Iron Bone disciples obeyed the sect leader's orders and hurriedly used the cloud-treading steps to ascend the mountain. Seeing this, Elder Bai smiled faintly. He didn't chase after them. Instead, he locked his consciousness on Jun Changshao and said indifferently, do you believe that as long as you take a step, I will destroy your soul? Is that so? Jun Changshao sneered. Although he couldn't beat a peak martial king, he couldn't lose his momentum. After all, he was the sect leader. Soon, all the disciples retreated. Only Jiangye was left in the life and death arena. No, there was one more person, and that was the medicine hall master, Elder Wei. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Please return to the sect quickly. Elder Wei got up and left. However, he didn't return to the sect. Instead, he walked forward and stood in front of the sect leader. His originally bent body straightened. This. Jun Changxiao's expression froze. Elder Wei's turbid eyes gradually became sharp. He said in a deep voice, "This is the territory of the Iron Bone Sect. It's not the place for an inexperienced junior to behave atrociously." Update 7. Today, I've been writing and publishing, so, for tomorrow's update at midnight, there might only be one update. The remaining 2 updates would be pushed to the day. Thank you for the rewards of the 9 heavens. Please recommend me. Please vote. Chapter 382. This is the territory of the Iron Bone clan. It's not the place for an immature junior to behave atrociously. When Elder Wei said this, although his tone was calm, an extremely strong aura appeared around him. Jun Changshao and Jiang Ye, who were closest to him, immediately widened their eyes. This aura, this momentum, it was simply invincible. Grade 1 Martial Master, Grade 2 Martial Master, Grade 3 Martial Master. According to the changes in Elder Wei's aura, the system recited the realms. Finally, it paused for a moment and said, Grade 4 Wu Huang. What? Grade 4. Wu Huang. Jun Changshao's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He knew that Elder Wei was an old man with a story, but he never thought that he would be an expert of Wu Huang's level. Ai Shang was also dumbfounded. This Elder Wei worked in his medicine store. He looked very old and his cultivation was not very high. How did he suddenly become so overbearing? His domineering aura was used exquisitely. Compared to Elder Bai, whether it was his gaze, aura, or gestures, he was absolutely suppressed. An expert, an expert, an expert. This was the inference of various martial artists based on the comparison between the two of them. Jiang Ye, who was behind him, was extremely shocked. He thought to himself, this aura is definitely Wu Huang. It turned out that the sect that he joined not only had an expert who was neither human nor demon, but also an even more terrifying expert. Elder Bai furrowed his brows. To be exact, when Elder Wei no longer hid his cultivation and unleashed his true strength, Elder Bai's heart trembled and his fingers trembled. Was an ultimate peak martial king very strong? Very strong. Unfortunately, in front of a martial emperor, he was still much, much weaker. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao was wild with joy and transmitted his voice, so, you're an expert. If he did not unleash his realm, he would have always thought that Elder Wei was just an outstanding medicine master. If he had known that there was such an awesome expert, he would not have activated the Sect protection formation. Sigh, Elder Wei transmitted his voice, I just want to plant herbs in the Iron Bone. Unfortunately, the tree wants to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. His back was broad and imposing, but also showed his helplessness. If one were to interpret that sentence with a different meaning, the content would be, can't you cause less trouble and let me be a reclusive expert in peace? When Jiang Ye attacked, Elder Wei wanted to attack, but in the end, he restrained himself. Just now, when Elder Zhan brought people over, he also had the intention of intimidating them. In the end, the sect leader and a group of disciples resolved it. Originally, he thought that he would not have to make a move and would continue to be a dispirited old man planting herbs. Who would have thought that a peak martial king would appear and threaten the sect master? Thus, he could only step forward. What? All the cultivators present widened their eyes, their hearts shocked to the extreme. Ai Shang's jaw dropped when he heard this. Oh my god! A Wu Huang expert was a temporary medicine master in his medicine store. He thought it was very ordinary and generously gave it to sect leader Jun. Qin Haoran was the most shocked. When he heard the words, Wu Huang, he was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. Shentong, Situ Wang, and the others were also dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with shock. A martial king and Wu Huang. Was this Iron Bone really a seventh-rate sect? He had mocked and ridiculed them, and now he was here to watch them make a fool of themselves. If he angered them, he would not even know how he died. Old Wei was a martial emperor. Many martial artists were shocked when they found out that Old Wei was a martial emperor. Their expressions froze. Of course. Sect leader Jun was the most satisfied. They thought that they would have to retreat into the sect protection formation, but Elder Wei was suddenly possessed by a great god and confronted the peak Martial King. Satisfied. Super satisfied. Elder Wei said lightly, "If I'm not wrong, you should be 400 years old. When I became a peak Martial King, you were still reincarnated somewhere." Huff, huff. As he spoke, a strong pressure spread out, causing Elder Bai to break out in cold sweat. "Do you believe it?" Elder Wei said, "If you blink, I'll destroy your soul." Those words sounded familiar. That's right. Elder Bai had said those words to Jun Changshao in a very pretentious manner just now. However, he said to take one step, while Elder Wei said to blink. That was absolutely domineering. Jun Changshao wanted nothing more than to hug Old Man Wei's golden thigh. With a face full of worship, he said, "Great God, please accept my knees. Take me to act tough, take me to fly, take me to the top." No, no. How can he be a hall leader? After this is over, I must give him the position of elder. Gulp. Elder Bai swallowed his saliva. No one knew how painful it was for him to bear the pressure from Wu Huang. As for his eyes, he definitely did not dare to blink. Although the evil sects are unscrupulous, Elder Wei said, they still have to consider the rules of the martial arts world, right? Elder Bai immediately understood the meaning of this sentence and hurriedly said, "Sect leader Jun just won 10 rounds. According to the agreement, we will leave and mind our own business from now on." Just now, he said that it was Elder Zhan's agreement and had nothing to do with him. Now, he instantly admitted defeat and compromised. "Little guy," Elder Wei said, "I hope you keep your word. Otherwise, I don't mind going to the God-slaying hall to have a talk with Wei Xinhao." Elder Bai's expression changed again when he heard that. This name, this person, that was the previous hall master of the God-slaying hall. He had already stepped down and was respected as the Supreme Elder. He was Wu Huang and knew the Supreme Elder. He was definitely an expert of the older generation. "Senior, please don't worry," Elder Bai said with an incomparably solemn expression, "My God-slaying hall has always been a man of our words. We will never go back on our words." Jun Changshao rolled his eyes. Just now, he was clearly going back on his word, but he actually licked his face and said that he would keep his word. "Who?" Elder Wei retracted his pressure and pointed to the front, "I will count to 3. Take your men and these evil cultivators and disappear immediately." When he said the word disappear, Elder Bai had already left with an afterimage. Elder Zhan and the others also hurriedly carried the injured and retreated as fast as they could. A moment later, more than 10,000 evil cultivators disappeared without a trace. The martial artists of Huayang County who were watching the show also left. They were afraid that they would be misunderstood and think that they were here to help them destroy the Iron Bone. After everyone left, Elder Wei shouted in one breath, 1, 2, 3. Jun Changshao almost couldn't hold back and added, "Blockhead." "Sect leader." Elder Wei said, "You won't blame me for letting that peak Martial King go without permission, right? With Elder Wei's strength, killing him will be easy, but he will also offend the God-slaying hall. Therefore, it is the wisest choice to let him go," Jun Changshao said. Elder Wei smiled and began to retract his powerful aura. After a while, his back arched again, and his sharp eyes returned to their turbid state. Sect leader Elder Wei exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and said, "I'll go back first." After saying that, he turned and left. The back view he left for everyone was old and dispirited. At that moment, the martial artists of Qingyang County would not underestimate this old man. After all, he was a hidden Wu Huang. Jun Changshao sent an apologetic voice transmission, "Elder Wei, I'm sorry. Because of me, you can't continue to live in seclusion in peace." Elder Wei stopped and said, "Sect leader, you don't treat me as a member of the Iron Bone sect." Jun Changshao smiled brightly. Plop. Elder Wei wasn't paying attention and tripped over a rock under his feet, falling to the ground in a sorry state. Jun Changshao's smile froze, and black lines appeared on his forehead. This old man, is he really a martial emperor? P.S. I won't wait until midnight. I'll post it in advance. I'll get up during the day and write 2 chapters. Everyone is not a saint. Who can be free? I was busy renovating 2 days ago and didn't have time to write. Everyone, please understand me. I dare to work so hard today. Chapter 383. Elder Bai fled with the evil sect of Huayang County in a sorry state. That was the end of the conflict. With a martial emperor like Elder Wei in charge, they would not dare to cause any more trouble. The martial artists of Qingyang County were still in a daze. The fact that Iron Bone had won 10 rounds in a row and resolved the situation of death had already shocked them. Who would have thought that at the critical moment, another expert Wu Huang would appear? Just his aura alone was enough to scare a peak martial king to the point that he peed his pants. After the matter ended, Iron Bone had also averted danger and many martial artists left. On the way, they were still discussing what they had just witnessed, such as the Iron Bone disciples, elders, and even the sect leader's performance in the life and death arena. This day was destined to be unforgettable. Qin Haoran and the alliance members left with their tails between their legs. This time, they did not manage to make a joke out of themselves. They were still worried that if Jun Changshao held a grudge, would he bring Martial King and Wu Huang to bully them? They were thinking too much. If he really wanted to bully them, he would not have let them leave Iron Bone Mountain so easily. If it was before, if Jun Changshao had the strength, he might really go and suppress the 100 Sect Alliance. But now, a bunch of trash, a bunch of ants, he could not be bothered with them. As his sect and his own cultivation grew stronger, this 100 Sect Alliance was not even worth a fart in Jun Changxiao's eyes. The other party just wanted to see a joke and did not do anything sinister. He just let them stand at the foot of the mountain and look up at Iron Bone like ants. However, the 20 evil sects led by the Deicide Hall had attacked and destroyed his own sect. Jun Changxiao would remember this grudge in his heart. When he had the strength in the future, he would definitely send troops to Huayang County. Iron Bone, in the main hall. Xie Guangquan, Ai Shang and the rest were invited in. Jun Changshao sat at the head of the table and cupped his hands. This time, my Iron Bone is in trouble and everyone came to help. Jun will remember this kindness. City Lord Ao said, Sect leader Jun helping Azure Sun County to take revenge for the annihilation of the sects is a favor. We are only here to help with a little bit of effort. To be honest, he didn't do anything at all and was just a spectator the whole time. But since he was not afraid of the evil faction and dared to come to the Iron Bone to help, it was a kindness. Therefore, Jun Changshao said in a clear voice, Patriarch Ai, please give each city lord and patriarch a body sculpting pill on behalf of Jun to express my gratitude. Yes. With a wave of his hand, Ai Shang-yi took out 2 bottles of body-shaping pills and handed them to the 7 city lords and more than 20 patriarchs. This, City Lord Ao and the others were dumbfounded. Only 5 body-shaping pills would be auctioned off every month. Even if one had the money, it would be difficult to buy them. The Ai family's patriarch actually took out so many at once. It was simply unbelievable. Also, one sentence from sect leader Jun. Ai Shang was willing to take out so many body-shaping pills. What kind of terrifying face was this? Everyone. Jun Changshao said, I've already made the arrangements. Please stay for a meal. Sect Master Jun, City Lord Ao clasped his hands and said, I still have things to do in the city. I'll take my leave first. The other city lords and patriarchs also stood up and bid farewell. Jun Changshao did not urge them to stay. He personally sent them to the door and said, in the future, my Iron Bone will have to rely on everyone in Qingyang County. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. Your Iron Bone is so strong, and there's also King Wu and Wu Huang. It should be us relying on you. After some polite words, City Lord Ao and the others left. Xie Guangquan did not leave. Instead, he stood at the door and shook his head. They are wrong. This is a delicacy that will last them a lifetime. That's right. Ai Shang-yi agreed. The two of them did not leave because they wanted to eat Lu Wancher's cooking. Sect leader Jun, at the dining table in the cafeteria, Xie Guanquan raised his cup and said, "Today's iron bone really opened my eyes. First, they won 10 matches in a row. Then, there's the appearance of Elder Wei and Wu Huang. When the news spreads, it will definitely cause a huge commotion." Ai Shang-yi also raised his cup. One was the city lord of Qingyang County, and the other was the patriarch of Ai clan. Both of them had a good relationship with Jun Changshao, so they were naturally very happy. Sigh. Jun Changshao raised his cup and said, "I only want to develop the sect in a low-key manner. Unfortunately, the wind will not stop." Xie Guanquan and Ai Shang-yi's mouths twitched. Going to Huayang County to destroy 4 evil sects in a row. This was simply too low-key. "Come." Jun Changshao said, "Let's drink." The three of them drank to their heart's content. After 3 rounds of drinking, Xie Guanquan raised his cup again and said, "Sect leader Jun, if Shenyang County invades, please help us." This was the real reason why he stayed to eat and drink. The war in southwest Yangzhou could affect Qingyang City at any time. Although City Lord Xia had already made preparations, he still couldn't eat or sleep in peace. Now, not only did the Iron Bones sect have a martial king, they also had a martial emperor. This made him realize that if they were present, the Xinjiang County would definitely have scruples about annexing the Azure Sun County. "Qingyang City is my home. I won't allow anyone to bully it," Jun Changshao said. Even if he didn't have any feelings for Qingyang City, just by the fact that City Lord Xia had been supporting him all this time, he wouldn't allow anyone to recklessly offend them. Ai Shang-yi said, "When the nest is overturned, no eggs will remain intact. If Xinjiang County invades, Huyang City will also be in trouble. Therefore, I hope that sect leader Jun can help us." "No problem," Jun Changshao said straightforwardly. Not to mention Huyang City, just by the fact that the city lords and patriarchs had come to support him today, whoever dared to touch Qingyang County would be touching him. Of course. The 100 Sect Alliance was excluded. Jun Changshao wasn't in the mood to care about this organization that wanted to see him become a joke. Naturally, he wouldn't help them. After drinking to their heart's content, Xie Guanquan and Ai Shang-yi left happily. Sect leader Jun forced the alcohol out of his body and hurried to the herb garden. Elder Wei. When he arrived at the small pavilion outside the herb garden, he cupped his hands and said, "So you're the real boss." Cough, cough. Elder Wei, who was sitting on a stone bench, coughed twice and said with a haggard face, "You're an old man with half a foot in the grave. How can you be considered a boss?" Jun Changshao's expression froze. He could feel that Elder Wei's current appearance was much older than before he unleashed his cultivation. Sect leader. Elder Wei's eyes were filled with bitterness as he said, "Although I have Wu Huang's cultivation, I don't have Wu Huang's strength. I can only use my aura to scare people." Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. Elder Wei said, "There are many difficult and complicated illnesses in this world. For example, one's strength is declining day by day despite having a high cultivation. What kind of illness is this?" Jun Changshao asked. Elder Wei shook his head and said, "I've searched all over the Falling Star continent and visited countless famous doctors. The answer I received was that it's an incurable illness." Jun Changshao was silent. Elder Wei's face was slightly pale now. When he thought of how he was tripped at the foot of the mountain just now, he realized that he had paid a great price for unleashing Wu Huang's cultivation. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao's eyes were firm as he said, "There's no illness in this world that can't be cured. There are only incompetent doctors. I'll definitely find a way to eradicate your difficult illness. I know my own illness." Elder Wei smiled and said meaningfully, "But sect leader, don't think that you can sit back and relax just because the sect has Wu Huang. You still have to rely on yourself in the future." Chapter 384. Elder Wei was Wu Huang, but he only had the realm and no strength. If Elder Bai had insisted on destroying Iron Bone at that time, he would have been powerless. This was a difficult disease that was very difficult to cure. Elder Wei, who had lived for a long time, knew about his illness, so he did not have any hope. After learning about the situation, Jun Changshao naturally would not let him stay sick. He had to find a way to treat him. The doctors of the Falling Star continent couldn't do it. It's fine. I have the system. I can definitely find a cure. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao said, I have a high-level healing pill here. Try it first. He did not know that Elder Wei was sick, so he never thought that he would let a normal person take a mid-grade healing pill. The system poured cold water on him. The mid-grade healing pill is only suitable for Wuzong at best. It has no effect on powerhouses like Wu Huang. Jun Changshao knew, but he had to try. What if he was cured? It was a pity. After Elder Wei took it, he was as haggard as ever. Even if the healing pill was effective on Wu Huang, it was only for healing. It definitely could not cure him. Sect Master. Elder Wei said, don't worry about me. Just focus on how to make yourself and the sect stronger as soon as possible. Because of the illness, Wu Huang's realm and no strength could not help Iron Bone at all. He hoped that Jun Changshao could rely on his own efforts to become stronger. Treatment could not be rushed. Even if there were healing drugs in the shop, it would depend on luck to refresh them. Therefore, Jun Changshao said seriously, let's wait for the spiritual aura to recover. Elder Wei glanced at the medicinal garden and said, the soil of Iron Bone Mountain is very ordinary. It will take a long time to cultivate medicinal herbs and gather spiritual power. We can only wait. Oh? Jun Changshao said, Elder Wei means that if the soil quality is very high, the spiritual aura can recover faster? That's right, Elder Wei said. Jun Changshao asked, what kind of soil is it? Elder Wei said, the better ones are red earth and leap earth. The better ones are rare earth and spirit earth. The more advanced ones are thick earth and carrier earth. Where can I find thick earth and Zai earth? Jun Changshao said. Since he knew that there were so many types of soil, he would definitely choose the highest grade. Elder Wei shook his head and said, this kind of soil is extremely rare in the Starfall continent. Even first-rate sects might not have it. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Since that was the case, he would settle for the next best thing, rare earth and spirit soil. However, Elder Wei continued, could it be that sect leader wants to find soil to improve the quality of the Iron Bone Mountain? Okay, Jun Changshao replied. Elder Wei shook his head and said, if you want to improve the geology of an area, you have to do it on a large scale. If it's only about 10 mu, it won't have much effect. How big is this scale? At least 10,000 mu. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes. Not to mention whether or not he could find rare earth, it would be a huge project to improve 10,000 mu of land. Of course. Elder Wei said, if sect leader wants to improve the quality of the soil, I have a way. What way? Jun Changshao hurriedly asked. Elder Wei was silent for a moment and said, if sect leader can subdue a high-level earth-type dire beast and continuously release its earth attribute, you can slowly improve the quality of the soil. This, Jun Changshao held his chin and said, but a high-level earth-type dire beast isn't, ga. His voice suddenly stopped. He suddenly thought of something. Wasn't Peppa Boar an earth-type dire beast? Moreover, it was a phantasmal beast. It should be worthy of the word high-level, right? Elder Wei. Jun Changshao hurriedly said, can an earth-type phantasmal beast work? Elder Wei said, phantasmal beasts are mutated dire beasts. As long as they have earth-type attributes, they will definitely be stronger than other dire beasts. Naturally, they are suitable for improving the quality of the soil. Bang! The sect leader's ball flew out and Peppa Boar, who was curled up, appeared on the grass. Every time he saw such a lazy contract beast, Jun Changshao couldn't help but sharpen his knife to chop it up. He suppressed his anger and said, "Elder Wei, what do you think of it?" Elder Wei was very surprised. The sect leader summoned a dire beast with a wave of his hand, but he still looked at it seriously. Then, he said a little speechlessly, "This looks like a pig, right?" He had seen Little Dragon and Ice Lion before, but he had never seen this little guy before. The main reason was that it was too embarrassing, so Jun Changshao rarely took it out. Even Wu Huang couldn't tell its breed, so he just treated it as a real pig. Jun Changshao said, "Elder Wei, although it looks like a pig, it is a genuine Earth-type phantasmal beast." Elder Wei said, "In that case, sect leader, please let it release its Earth-type attributes. I will see if it can improve the quality of the soil." Bang! Jun Changshao kicked Peppa Wild Boar's butt and said, "Stand up and release your Earth-type attributes." Coo, coo. Peppa Wild Boar made a sound and then continued to sleep on the ground, not even opening its eyes. Jun Changshao, Elder Wei, coo, coo. Outside the herb garden, Peppa Wild Boar ran wildly with its 4 short legs, its face ferocious. Why isn't it sleeping? Why is it so energetic? Because, behind it, Jun Changshao was holding the green dragon crescent blade and chasing after it with a murderous aura. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were also chasing behind, and they advised loudly, "Sect leader, you must calm down, it is your contract beast." "I don't have a contract beast like this." Sect leader Jun said crazily, "I will kill it today and let the disciples eat roast suckling pig." Everyone stopped in unison, holding their chins and saying, "We can have this." Bang! Ma Yongning, Dahe, and Ariai put down the chopping board. Lu Wancher, who was wearing an apron, held 2 kitchen knives in her hands and said with a gloomy face, "Sect leader, let me cut it later." Coo, coo. Peppa Wild Boar was scared out of its wits when it saw this. Plop! Suddenly, its 4 legs kicked, and it fell straight to the ground. Its mouth was crooked, and its eyes were slanted. It was foaming at the mouth, and it seemed to have fainted. Bang! The green dragon crescent blade was inserted in front of its eyes. Bang, 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 bang. Cold Edge Sword, Cold Light Sword, Overlord Spear, and Unyielding Iron Shield were all inserted around it. Jun Changshao squatted down and said with a ferocious face like a demon, "If you don't want to die, hurry up and release the earth element." Swoosh! Peppa Wild Boar, who was pretending to be dead, stood up directly. Its eyes were unprecedentedly serious, and brown elements appeared around its body. As expected. Elder Wei said, "It's an earth element dire beast." Huff, huff. A thick aura spread out and gradually turned into a majestic dire beast about 4 to 5 meters tall. It looked like a lion, a tiger, and a leopard. Elder Wei frowned. As an experienced cultivator, Wu Huang could not tell what kind of dire beast Peppa Wild Boar was from the form it transformed into. He was not the only one. Yi Xingchen had never seen it before. Roar! At this moment, Peppa Wild Boar raised its head and roared. The dire beast that it transformed into also opened its bloody mouth and roared. Instantly, a visible sound wave was formed and spread in the herb garden like a ripple. The sound made everyone's heart tremble. Swoosh! 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 At the same time, the ground that was affected by the sound wave shone with a special luster. Every grain of sand seemed to be covered by it. Chapter 385. Under the threat of its master's various weapons, Peppa Wild Boar obediently activated its phantom soul and roared angrily. The sound was awe-inspiring. At the same time, it also contained a majestic earth attribute that instantly enveloped every grain of dust in the herb garden and carried out a comprehensive cultivation. However, with just a roar, Jun Changshao said, "Elder Wei, how is it?" Elder Wei squatted on the ground, picked up a pile of soil, and felt it slightly. He murmured, "There are some changes." A little. Jun Changshao was not satisfied. Then, with a gloomy face, he looked at Peppa Wild Boar and said, "Don't just stand there, continue roaring." The chubby little guy's eyes were suddenly filled with tears. It felt wronged and could not express its bitterness. "Hurry up!" Jun Changshao scolded. Phew! Peppa Wild Boar was afraid that its master would take out another set of weapons, so it hurriedly activated its phantom soul again and roared. Although the sound was not as strong as before, the earth attribute was still powerful. Elder Wei grabbed a handful of soil and said, "Sect leader, your contract beast has a good understanding of the earth attribute. If it continues to activate its phantom soul every day and release its own attributes, it should be able to improve the soil in the herb garden very quickly." "How long?" Jun Changshao asked. "If it can release dozens of times a day, it will take about 10 days to half a month," Elder Wei deduced. Plop! Peppa Wild Boar directly fell to the ground with its 4 legs, and tears flowed uncontrollably. "I'm also Master's contract beast, why am I so unlucky?" Jun Changshao said, "From now on, you will live in the herb garden and release dozens of times a day. When the soil is improved, you will be put into the sect leader's ball." Peppa Wild Boar heard this and cried even more miserably. "Of course," Jun Changshao said, "if you dare to slack off during this period, you will be made into a roasted suckling pig." Under the threat of its master, Peppa Wild Boar began to improve the soil in the herb garden. It had to release its earth attribute dozens of times a day and would collapse on the ground at night. At night, Jun Changshao sat in the study, opened the beginner-grade sword path aptitude liquid, and drank it happily. It tasted similar to the aptitude improvement liquid. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Sword Dao aptitude. A notification sounded in his ears. In Jun Changshao's sea of consciousness, some strange knowledge seemed to appear out of thin air. This knowledge was all related to the way of the sword. Understood, understood. Jun Changshao murmured, his eyes gradually brightening. He walked out of the study and went to the small practice field in the inner yard. He took out the mid-grade cold light sword. After consuming the elementary Sword Dao aptitude liquid, a lot of Sword Dao knowledge had been instilled into him, allowing him to have a great understanding of the first form of the Ling Jian God art, the one-word sword technique. To be more precise, it was as if he had been enlightened and suddenly saw the light. Shwa! Jun Changshao placed one hand on the hilt of his sword, and a sword aura emanated from his body. It was as if he had transformed into a sharp sword. Zhou Hong, who was comprehending the Sword Dao, immediately sensed it. He turned around and asked in surprise, "Sect Master, he is also a sword cultivator?" Not bad. Jun Changshao was also a swordsman now. There were different levels in swordsmanship. What level was he at now? The simplest and most direct way to judge was how many sword moves he could make in one breath. Take Zhou Hong for example. After coming to Iron Bone, he could make 23 sword moves in one breath without the support of sword techniques. He was a rare seedling in the way of the sword. Take Yi Xingqian for example. Although he was not a professional sword cultivator, he had a lot of experience in martial arts. He forcefully comprehended the one-word sword technique and could make 24 sword moves in one breath. Judging from the sect master's aura, he should have a good understanding of the way of the sword. It shouldn't be difficult for him to make 15 sword moves in one breath. Zhou Hong judged from a professional point of view. Yi Xingqian, who had just returned from the Tower of Trials, also saw Jun Changshao. He was quite surprised and asked, "He's a sword cultivator?" No. He had never seen him use it before. Clang! The cold light sword was unsheathed, and sword light flashed. Shwa! Shwa! The sword aura turned into a white light, shining dazzlingly in the dark night. Clang! Jun Changshao sheathed his sword, and his face was unusually calm. Zhou Hong said in surprise, 20 sword moves. This, Yi Xingqian was also dumbfounded. Jun Changshao did not use any sword techniques when he attacked. To be able to make 20 sword moves, he was definitely a good seedling with a good aptitude in the way of the sword. Of course. It could not be compared to Zhou Hong's 23 sword moves in one breath. However, Jun Changshao had just taken the elementary sword Dao aptitude liquid and had the knowledge of the way of the sword. This was the first time he used it to test his skills. Clang! He attacked again. Shush! 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 The white light of the sword's shadow spread out. When Jun Changshao sheathed his sword, he made 50 sword moves in one breath. This time, he used the one-word speed formula. Not bad, not bad. The system praised, given your understanding of the way of the sword, you should be comparable to an upper-middle level swordsman. Jun Changshao said to himself, true enough, the so-called elementary items in the system are not simple even in the other world. Indeed, they were not simple. When Yi Xingqian first comprehended the one-word sword technique, he could only make 24 sword moves in one breath. He could make 50 sword moves in one breath. He was really quite powerful. Zhou Hong, who cultivated later, could only make 60 sword moves in one breath when he used the one-word sword technique for the first time. It was not difficult to come to this conclusion based on the number of sword moves. In terms of the way of the sword, Jun Changshao was stronger than Yi Xingqian and weaker than Zhou Hong, but not by much. I didn't expect this guy to be a hidden master of the way of the sword. Yi Xingqian was secretly shocked. No. He hurriedly corrected himself, he is a dual cultivator of sword and martial arts. Yi Xingqian recognized Jun Changshao's martial arts ability very much. After all, he was able to reach second-grade Wuzong at such a young age. Even in his previous life, it was difficult for him to do so. Now that he had an extremely high aptitude in the way of the sword, he was definitely a one-in-a-million genius in both the way of the sword and the way of the sword. The so-called dual cultivation of the sword and the way of the sword seemed very powerful, but in reality, it was useless. Because cultivating the way of the sword and the way of the sword at the same time would only waste more time. It was definitely not as fast as cultivating the way of the sword and the way of the sword. Of course. If a dual cultivator could reach a higher level, especially the level of the king of sword and martial arts, his combat strength would be incomparable to that of a single cultivator. At the same level, a martial cultivator could not defeat a sword cultivator, and a sword cultivator could not defeat a dual cultivator of the sword and the way of the sword. Over the years, there had been many dual cultivators of the sword and the way of the sword in the Starfall continent. However, the number of dual cultivators who had reached the level of king of sword and the way of the sword could be counted with 10 fingers. Why was this? Because when one reached the pinnacle of the sword and the way of the sword, there would be a multiple-choice problem. Either one would be stuck at the level of the sword and the way 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 of the sword. Many dual cultivators of the sword and the way of the sword and the way of the sword reached the pinnacle of Wuzong first. Because they could not bear to cultivate the other way of the sword, or because they wanted to become stronger faster, they had no choice but to focus on one way. In short, dual cultivation of the sword and the way of the sword and the way of the sword was a blessing and a curse. From historical experience, focusing on one way of the sword was the most correct choice. Jun Changshao did not know that he had become a one-in-a-million dual cultivator of the sword and the way of the sword. After he returned to the study, he asked, "Is there any mid-grade sword aptitude liquid?" "Yes." The system said. Jun Changshao touched his chin and said, "So, I don't need to comprehend the way of the sword at all. I just need to wait for the mid-grade one and use it to improve." "Yes." The system said. Clap. Jun Changshao clapped his hands and said, "Perfect." Therefore, the explanation of the dual cultivation of the sword and the way of the sword was only limited to the martial artists of the Falling Star continent. With the system in hand, he was completely a super bug that jumped out of the 5 elements and was not in the 3 realms. Cultivating the way of the sword and the way of the sword together? No way. He only needed to focus on the way of the martial way, and the way of the sword could only be improved by consuming the aptitude liquid. Shwa! Jun Changshao's mind moved, pulled out the shop, and then rubbed his hands, saying, "Now that I have more than 4,000 contribution points, I must squander them well. Chapter 386. Sect leader June, who had 4,760 contribution points, clicked on the mid-level store without hesitation, giving off the feeling of a nouveau riche. The last time he refreshed the mid-level store, he bought the mystical Gate 32 formation. Because he didn't have enough contribution points, he didn't look at the other products carefully. This time, he looked carefully. If he saw something he liked, he would buy it without hesitation. Needless to say, the first time he refreshed the mid-level store, there were a lot of good products. Jun Changshao looked at the third row and saw a product called Mission Publisher. Wasn't this the thing the system said before? Jun Changshao quickly clicked on the introduction. Item, Mission Publisher. Introduction, it can automatically publish missions of different difficulty every day. After the sect disciples complete them, they will receive the corresponding contribution points. Advantage, there is no need to wait for the sect to be full to trigger missions for the disciples to gain experience and obtain resources. Disadvantage, must have the sect mission board vending machine to use it normally. After the disciples complete the sect missions, the host will not receive any rewards. Price, 1,000 contribution points. Seeing the disadvantages, Jun Changshao held his chin and said, I have both of them. I can use them after buying them. But if the disciples complete the sect missions and don't receive any rewards, that's a bit fucked up. The system said, there are more and more disciples in the sect. If the sect is full, it won't be enough for each person to complete one mission. Therefore, the host is recommended to buy 5 stars. I'll buy it. Jun Changshao clicked on the purchase button. Ding! The host has spent 1,000 contribution points. You have obtained Mission Publisher X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 37605000. After buying this product, Jun Changshao continued to look. Finally, he saw a martial skill called Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash. Just from the name, it's very strong. He hurriedly clicked on the introduction. The content was item, Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash Introduction, a martial skill of the Scarlet Heaven Emperor from a certain plane. It is fierce and powerful, and its killing power is extremely strong. Advantage, the longer it accumulates power, the stronger it becomes. It can be used as a trump card. If it's a fire-type martial cultivator, it will be much easier to comprehend and its strength will increase greatly. Disadvantage, this move is extremely strong and is suitable for male martial cultivators. It's not suitable for female cultivators, even transvestites. Price, 2,000 contribution points. Grade, mid-divine grade. Fuck. Jun Changshao almost jumped up and said excitedly, another divine grade martial skill. The best part was that it was a mid-divine grade weapon, suitable for fire element cultivators. It was completely tailor-made for him. Oh. If he didn't mention it, he would have forgotten about it. Not only was sect leader Jun a dual cultivator of sword and martial arts, he was also a fire cultivator. Of course. The so-called fire elementalist was actually a branch of armaments. The technical term was called fire elemental armaments. It's normal. The system said calmly, the chances of getting a divine grade martial skill in an intermediate level mall are much higher than in a beginner level mall. It's just too expensive. 2,000 contribution points made Jun Changshao's heart ache a little. The system said, host, you don't have to buy it if you think it's too expensive. Quickly refresh it. Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, only a fool wouldn't buy it. Only a fool would refresh. Ding! Host has spent 2,000 contribution points and obtained Scarlet Firmament Raging Flame Slash X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1760500. Originally, he had 4,760 contribution points, but after buying 2 items, he only had 1,760 points left. The items in the intermediate level mall were really expensive. Ding! Detected that host has bought a spiritual force martial skill from the mall, automatically matching it with a sect martial skill. Jun Changshao retreated and saw the words, Scarlet Firmament Raging Flame / added at the end of the sect martial skill. This meant that not only could he learn it, but male disciples could also learn it. Copy. Sect leader Jun spent another 50 contribution points and copied 5,000 Scarlet Firmament Raging Flame / With so many mid-divine grade martial skills, if they were to be thrown into the outside world, it would definitely cause chaos. After buying, Jun Changshao hurriedly returned to the intermediate level mall. He was afraid that if he looked at another item, he would spend all his contribution points. Schwa! He opened the beginner level mall. There were 1,710 contribution points left. Sect leader Jun, who had OCD, had to use them. Ding! Sect contribution points, 17005000. The beginner level mall changed, and new items appeared. Because Jun Changshao had bought a lot of good things in the intermediate level mall, he only looked at the beginner level items briefly. Suddenly, his gaze stopped at the back row. It was a picture of a gun, named, God Modified, AWM Sniper Rifle. Aya, holy shit! Jun Changshao exclaimed, another sniper rifle refreshed. The system couldn't help but ridicule, dog, shit, luck. Although Jun Changshao didn't know much about firearms, he had played a lot of FPS shooting games, and AWM sniper rifles were undoubtedly the most common. In terms of power and performance, it was definitely stronger than the Type 88 sniper rifle. There was a more important point. This wasn't a magic modification, but a god modification. Sect leader Jun had refreshed the mall countless times, and there were a lot of magic modified items, but the only god modification item was the green dragon crescent blade. He clicked on the description, and the contents were as follows: item, God modified, AWM sniper rifle. Description, military bolt action sniper rifle. Effect, fast firing rate, long range, strong penetrating power. Weakness, magazine capacity of 5 rounds, strong recoil. Special effect, activating super weapon mode, can gather 5 bullets together to form a super bullet. Price, 500 contribution points. As expected. Jun Changshao said, the god-modified Green Dragon Crescent Blade has a special effect, so does the god-modified AWM Sniper Rifle. Just because of the special effect, he had to buy it. Ding! Host has spent 500 contribution points, obtained god-modified, AWM Sniper Rifle X1, has been transported into the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 11005000. In a short period of time, Sect leader Jun had spent 3,660 contribution points, falling from a nouveau riche to a person at the bottom. However, obtaining a Sect publisher, a god-ranked martial skill, and a god-modified sniper rifle, to him, was still very worth it. Schwa! Jun Changshao waved his hand, and took out the heavy AWM sniper rifle. The body of the gun was very long, and it was painted with camouflage colors, definitely the most common design in FPS games. Its power should be much stronger than the Type 88. Sect leader. The next day, Xiao Ziji played with the AWM sniper rifle, and said, this newly developed gun doesn't seem to be any different from the Type 88. Whether there is a difference or not, you'll know once you try it. Jun Changshao said. Okay. Xiao Ziji stood up and raised the gun. The bullets used in the god-modified AWM sniper rifle were not magnum bullets, but the same bullets that were condensed from crystal nuclei. Jun Changshao reminded, the power of this gun might be a bit strong, you should lie down and wear the shoulder pads. Xiao Ziji grinned and said, disciple's skin is thick, I should be able to withstand it. With the increase in cultivation and the strength of his body, using the Type 88 sniper rifle, even if he did not wear shoulder pads, he would be able to steadily suppress the recoil. Bang! The sound of the gunshot was deafening. Holy shit! Jun Changshao's mouth twitched, this is definitely the sound of a cannon firing. Turning his head to look, he saw the AWM sniper rifle smoking on the grass. Xiao Ziji was nowhere to be seen. If he did not guess incorrectly, sure enough, when he turned his head, he saw that on a tree 20 to 30 meters away, Xiao Ziji was hanging on a branch, foaming at the mouth, and both of his boots had been sent flying. Sect leader, the power, isn't it a bit strong? Jun Changshao ignored him, and said with a burning gaze, this gun is awesome. P.S. 2 is stronger, during the day. It should be more than 1, depending on my condition. After the peak of the evil sect invasion, I will definitely collapse for a while. I'm a man, you know. Chapter 387. Xiao Ziji, a 6th-grade martial master, was holding an AWM and shooting while standing, but he was sent flying more than 20 meters away. The recoil was really strong. It was also sect leader Jun's fault. In order to test the power of the sniper rifle, he didn't use low-grade bullets, but high-grade ones. Poor Xiao Ziji. His muscles were stiff from the recoil, and he was still holding the gun with his neck tilted. When he returned to the sect, he was greeted by the senior and junior brothers. Junior brother Xiao, what happened to you? Could it be a brand new cultivation method? Let me try. Bang! Suddenly, a gunshot came from the back of the mountain, causing everyone's ears to buzz. Boom! There was another sound, and the ground shook. What's going on? Could it be, the mountain collapsed? Let's go and take a look. The disciples hurried to the back of the mountain. As soon as they entered, they were all stunned. The first thing they saw when they entered the back of the mountain was that there was a small mountain in the distance, but it was now cut in half. Senior brother, what's going on? Li Fei asked in shock. Su Xiaoma's mouth twitched. You're asking me? Who am I supposed to ask? Look! Someone exclaimed, the sect leader is on the tree. The sect leader is on the tree? Everyone looked over and saw the sect leader, hanging on the tree, his eyelids rolled up, and white foam came out of his mouth. Not good, not good. The sect leader is injured. Quick, go to the medicine hall to save him. The iron bone was in chaos. On the training field, sect leader Jun was holding the gun with his hand, and he was doing morning exercises with his disciples with his neck tilted. After Xiao Ziji tried the gun, he also tried it. He even activated the special effect, and 5 bullets were combined into 1 super bullet. In the end, he was shaken to this extent. Although it was tragic, he was happy. Because of the special effect of the modified AWM sniper rifle, its power was terrifying. A small mountain in the back of the mountain was blown up, and it was comparable to a mortar. Can the martial king take it? Jun Changshao asked. System, in the past, it had always emphasized that the strength of firearms was ultimately limited. If one wanted to become stronger, they had to rely on martial arts techniques and weapons that were suitable for the world of martial arts. Now that the God-modified AMW had blasted away the small mountain with a single shot, they were once again slapped in the face. The system said, this gun's special effects are very strong, but does the host still expect to rely on special effects to hit a martial king every time? Of course not. Jun Changshao said, I can take it and go to the evil sects and destroy their sections. The system was speechless. You're using the AMW like a Italian cannon. Can't I? After testing the power of the spear, Jun Changshao was very satisfied. He planned to find some time to go to the Yin sect in Huayang County. If the departing cultists saw the power of the AWM super bullet and knew what this guy was thinking, they would definitely be trembling in fear. Mission Pavilion. Jun Changshao walked in after finishing his morning exercises. After the last round of sect missions were completed, there were no more missions issued. There were no disciples inside, so it seemed empty and desolate. Schwa! He took out the mission issuer. From its appearance, it looked more like a TV remote control. There were only 2 buttons on it, on and off. This is too simple. Jun Changshao was speechless. He pressed the on button. Swoosh, the sect mission board suddenly lit up. All kinds of missions were presented. There were 1-star, 2-star, and 2-star missions. As such, there were missions on the mission board every day. When the disciples received the missions and completed them, not only could they take the opportunity to gain experience, but they could also obtain contribution points to buy the required items. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Unfortunately, most of the goods in the vending machine in the disciples' shop were of lower quality. The only thing that had value was the chi-gathering elixir. The system said, "Do the hosts still hope that the goods inside are all kinds of divine weapons and skills?" "That's not it," Jun Changshao said. The system said, "Therefore, the value of the disciples' shop is that it can provide a necessary guarantee for all the disciples. If there are really many high-end goods, then everyone has a system." These words made Jun Changshao speechless. Furthermore, the system said, "Some of the goods in the disciples' shop are better than those in the large sections. As the sect grows in size, it becomes more important." "That makes sense," Jun Changshao said. Various high-level martial arts and weapons had to rely on one's own system and various functions. The disciples' shop was for the general public. It was normal that the goods inside were ordinary. This was only compared to Sect Master Jun's system. If this was placed in any sect, it would definitely be super awesome. Of course, the system added, when the host sect level and construction are higher, the disciples' shop will automatically replace the goods with better ones. But in short, it will not be too amazing. Understood. Jun Changshao called Li Qingyang over and told him that missions had been opened in the mission board. He asked the disciples to come and collect them. After a while, a large number of disciples gathered in the mission board. They crowded around the mission board. Although there were elixirs and spirit-gathering arrays in Iron Bone, who would complain about more resources? Therefore, they had to complete missions to exchange for the chi-gathering elixir. Those who were strong would take on high-star missions. Those who were weak would take on low-star missions. Except for the inner sect disciples. Because their focus now was to become stronger, all resources were provided by Jun Changshao. The sect's mission board, vending machine, mission board. The combination of the 3 gave Iron Bone a complete mission system. It would continue to be the norm. What a pity. The missions posted by the mission board would only give disciples contribution points after completing them. Jun Changshao would not get anything. Otherwise, the contribution points and achievement points would be inexhaustible. I still have to rely on my own hard work to create. Sitting in the main hall, Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "There is still a bottle of supreme-grade aptitude modification elixir. Who should I give it to?" Li Qingyang and the others all had supreme-grade spirit roots. Therefore, they were considered as the second batch of inner sect disciples. Long Xiang's growth is not bad. He can be nurtured, Jun Changshao murmured. "Qingyang," he said, "what do you think?" Sect leader. Li Qingyang said, "Junior brother Long's aptitude is without a doubt, and he is also very hard-working in his cultivation. But recently, his mood has been a little low, as if there is something bothering him. As the head butler, he was always concerned about the situation of his junior brothers. Call him over." Yes. Not long after, Long Xiang walked in and cupped his hands. Sect leader. Jun Changshao said, "I heard that you haven't been very active in your cultivation these few days. Is there something on your mind?" No. No. Long Xiang said. This tone, this small expression between his eyebrows, who would believe that there was nothing on his mind? Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "If there is anything bothering you, you must boldly say it. Sect leader will help you solve your problems." Long Xiang was silent for a moment, then clenched his fists and mustered up his courage. "Sect leader, can I go home for a while?" "Why do you want to go home?" Jun Changshao said. Long Xiang said, "In 5 days, it will be the day of my family's large competition. This disciple wants to participate. TSK. Jun Changshao drank a mouthful of tea and said, "A family also has a large competition, it's not simple." Long Xiang said, "Sect leader, since things have come to this disciple will not hide it from you. I am a direct descendant of the Long family in Longyang City." Pht! Jun Changshao spat out a mouthful of tea. First, there was the Lily Sacred Sect, and now there was the Longyang City. The names of the sects and cities in this foreign world were really slippery. Longyang City, Long family. Li Qingyang, who was at the side, was startled, and said in shock, "That is a big family that is comparable to the 4 or 5 sects." Chapter 388. There were many cities in southwest Yangzhou, and the strongest was the heavenly mandate imperial city. If the imperial city was considered a first-tier city, then there were many quasi-first-tier cities, such as Longyang City. This Longyang City did not mean that it was good. Don't think too much. There were many forces in Longyang City, and there were many experts. It was said that it was the most promising city to become the second imperial city in southwest Yangzhou. There were 3 major families in the city, the Long family, the Qi family, and the Ren family, as well as many other small and medium-sized families. No matter how small those small clans were, as long as they came to the cities of the Azure Sun County, they would definitely be a huge existence. Long Xiang came from Longyang City, from the Long family. Why did he join the Iron Bone? That was a long story. Would you believe me if I wrote a few chapters? So, to put it simply, although Long Xiang was a direct descendant of the Long family and had good potential, for some reason, he could not understand the family's martial arts. As a member of the Long family, he could not cultivate the Long family's martial arts. This was no different from the trash in traditional novels. So, Long Xiang was naturally mocked by his own family and ignored by the higher-ups. "Xiang, look, I just learned the Dragon Roar Palm. What do you think?" "Oh, I forgot, you can't learn it at all." Xiang went to the martial technique pavilion again. Did he not realize that he can't cultivate the family's martial arts? I even suspect that this kid is a direct descendant of the Long family. Otherwise, why can't he understand the most common Long family martial arts? Long Xiang pretended not to hear the mocking and discussions of his own family, but he clenched his fists every time he returned to his room. They have spiritual roots, and I'm stronger than them. They can't cultivate fast, but I can break through quickly with the most common mental cultivation method on the market. Why can they cultivate the Long family's martial arts, but I can't? I can't accept this. Master, if you can't cultivate the Long family's martial arts, your future will be limited. Why don't you let Long Xiang manage the family business? One of the elders had said this before. Long Xiang was furious when he heard this. Managing the family business meant that he could no longer cultivate martial arts, and he would be a marginal figure in the Long family. I don't agree. He rushed into the hall and loudly voiced his thoughts in front of the patriarch and elders. Then, he was punished with 50 strokes of the cane. Long Xiang's fellow clansmen, who were originally weaker than him, began to come into contact with more of the Long family's martial arts. Every time they came to show off, Long Xiang's mental state was on the verge of collapse. On the eve of being assigned to manage the family business, he finally couldn't take it anymore and secretly packed his luggage, resolutely leaving the Long family that he had lived in for more than 10 years. Long family. Before leaving, Long Xiang stood under the night sky and looked at the signboard with the words Long family. With a determined gaze, he said, I will come back. I will tell you that even if I don't cultivate the Long family's martial arts, Long Xiang can still become stronger. From today onwards, the wide sea allows the fish to leap, and the high sky allows the birds to fly. Then, as soon as he turned around, he was caught by the family's experts and was beaten 50 times. It was only when he was sent to manage the sect's business that he found an opportunity to escape. Long Xiang, who had left his family, had no one to rely on, and had lost all his resources. If he wanted to become stronger, he had to rely on himself. At the beginning, he had planned to be a rogue cultivator, but he had unintentionally passed by the Azure Sun County and heard that Li Qingyang and Imo Shangfei had fought and used a spiritual force-type martial skill. Why was he not liked in the family and was repeatedly bullied? Wasn't it because of his martial arts? I can't cultivate the Long family's martial arts, but I can cultivate other martial arts. Then, I can use the martial arts I learned to defeat my fellow clansmen who cultivate the Long family's martial arts and prove myself. As a result, Long Xiang went to the Iron Bone. He, Li Tiantian, Ling Yuanxue, Yang Yuhua and the others became the second batch of disciples. At that time, Long Xiang's idea was very simple. After learning he would secretly leave and transfer to other sects to learn martial arts. In the end, a single slip would cause everlasting sorrow, and when he looked back, 100 years had passed. What did this mean? In other words, stepping one foot into the Iron Bone was equivalent to falling into a bottomless abyss and never being able to climb out again. One day, when he recalled the past, he was already happily eating Lu Wancher's fried rice and saying that it was really fragrant. Sect leader. Long Xiang clenched his fists and said, "This is my story." Jun Changshao was silent. Xiao Ziji was silent. Lu Qianqian was silent, Yi Xingqian was silent, Su Xiaoma was silent. Wait a minute. Long Xiang looked at the group of senior brothers behind him with a wonderful expression, and said while grabbing his hair, "Why are all of you here? When did you all come? Also, why was Lu Wancher wiping her tears? Was my story that sad?" Sect leader. Lu Wancher's eyes were red as she sobbed. Senior brother Long's background is too tragic. Everyone nodded. The corner of Long Xiang's mouth twitched, as 10,000 grass mud horses ran wildly in his heart. Senior brother Su, when you nod, can you not laugh? Senior martial brother Li, when you nod your head, can you stop picking your nose? And Lu Wancher. You're holding a green onion in your hand. Are you crying from the bottom of your heart, or are you crying because of the spicy smell? Just as Long Xiang was cursing in his heart, Jun Changshao walked down, patted his shoulder, and said seriously, "The disciples of the Iron Bone clan can never be underestimated. I will allow you to go home and participate in the competition." "Thank you, sect leader." Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by Jun Changshao. "Since you snuck out, you will definitely be punished when you return." Long Xiang was silent. He should have gone to manage the family business, but in the end, he left. If he returned to the Long family, he would definitely be unlucky. So, Jun Changshao said, "I will go with you." Looking at the sect leader holding his head high and puffing out his chest, Long Xiang's eyes were filled with deep admiration. At the foot of the mountain, Long Xiang's shoulders drooped as he rode on the Hurricane Wolf, traveling unhappily. The sect leader was personally accompanying him to Longyang City. How could he not be happy? Because behind him were Lu Qianqian, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Yi Xingqian, Su Xiaoma, Tian Qi, Li Fei, and even Lu Wancher and Yao Menjing. "I'm going back to the family to participate in the competition, not to fight. Why did I bring so many people?" Xiang. Jun Changshao, who was riding on the Hurricane Wolf King in front, said, "Although you are a direct descendant of the Long family, you are also a disciple of my Iron Bone. I hope that you can obtain the first place in this family competition and show the might of the sect." Long Xiang said with a serious gaze, "This disciple will not disappoint the sect leader." Although he had initially come to Iron Bone to learn martial arts, after a long period of contact, he had completely recognized this sect, the sect leader, and his fellow disciples. Long family. I, Long Xiang, am coming back. Prepare to tremble in fear. At that moment, his eyes flickered with a strong fighting spirit, and his iron bones straightened even more. Junior brother Long, is there any fun place in Longyang City? Junior brother Long, are there many beauties in Longyang City? Junior brother Long, are there any special dishes and wine in Longyang City? Long Xiang, who had just nurtured a heroic aura, instantly fell to the bottom after being asked by Su Xiaoma and the others. His shoulders drooped as he howled in his heart dejectedly, they're not going to cheer, they're going to Longyang City to play. Chapter 389. From Qingyang City to Longyang City, at normal speed, it would take at least 7 to 8 days. However, Jun Changshao and the others had wind-type beasts, so if they followed the official road, they would be able to arrive in about a day. Of course. There were still 5 days before the Long family's large competition, so the time was very relaxed. Jun Changshao was not in a hurry. Every time he reached a beautiful place, he would take out his magic-modified camera and take photos with his disciples as a souvenir. Hoo-hoo! In the bamboo forest, flames rose. Lu Wancher passed over the skewers that she had finished grilling and said with a smile, "Sect Master, has my cooking improved?" Her cute little face was filled with the words, "Praise me, praise me." Jun Changshao took a bite and praised, "Not bad, not bad, the student has surpassed the master." Lu Wancher's smile became even more brilliant. "Menjing, here." She passed the skewer over. Yao Menjing received it, and after eating, she laughed, "Sister Du, this skewer is really delicious." The little loli had joined Iron Bone for a period of time. However, because of her age, she had never come into contact with martial arts. She had always followed Lu Wancher and became a little shadow that could not be shaken off. Li Qingyang passed the mountain spring water that he had just taken over, and said, "The water is very sweet, little junior sister apprentice, do you want to try it?" "Thank you, senior apprentice brother." Yao Menjing took the water bag and drank a few mouthfuls, a smile appearing on her small face. The little girl had just joined Iron Bone, so she had a strong resistance. Senior brothers and senior sisters cared for him in every possible way, and only then did he gradually open his heart. Yao Menjing had lost Grandpa Lu and gained a sect with love. It could be considered a blessing in disguise. Sect leader. Su Xiaoma drank a bowl of wine and said with a grin, "Cultivating in the sect every day is a bit boring, it's not bad to come out for a walk." Long Xiang muttered to himself on the verge of collapse, "As expected, cheering is secondary, the real purpose is to play." Tsk Yixingchen chewed on the skewer, and thought to himself unhappily, "That guy is going to participate in the clan competition, why did he bring us here, isn't this a waste of time?" Right now, he was more concerned about cultivation. Unless it was something related to the sect, such as the invasion of the evil sects, they wouldn't care about anything else. Under the dual comprehension of the Taishen Sutra and the body metamorphose scripture, Yixingchen's cultivation speed gradually revealed itself. It was possible for him to step into the 8th grade of martial master at any time. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were still stuck at the 6th grade martial master realm. They were still a short distance away from breaking through. Seriously. His speed of improvement was very impressive. But Yixingchen still felt that it was not fast enough. After all, the purpose of his rebirth was to drag the Empress down from her pedestal. With his current cultivation as a martial master, if he were to seek revenge on that woman, he would only be reduced to ashes with a single glance. Shwa! Shwa! On the official road leading to Longyang City, more than 10 hurricane wolves were galloping. Everywhere they passed, blue whirlwinds were left behind. Fuck! The thing that ran past me just now seemed to be a gale wolf, right? There's no way a gale wolf can run that fast. Could it be a hurricane wolf? Oh my god, could it be a disciple of the Iron Bone that just passed by? On the official road, many martial artists suddenly exclaimed. It was no secret that the Iron Bone had a large number of hurricane wolves on their way to Huayang County to destroy the 4 evil sections. Therefore, Jun Changshao did not choose to keep a low profile. Riding a hurricane wolf on the road, so awesome. Not only that, but this seemingly 7th grade Iron Bone also has a martial king and Wu Huang. The peak martial king of the god-slaying hall was scared away. In the past few days, the news of the invasion of the evil sects in Huayang County had already spread in all the counties. It had become the hottest topic at present. Iron Bone had won 10 consecutive battles, and Wu Huang's appearance had scared off the peak martial king. All the forces and rogue martial artists were shocked. They even suspected that it was a rumor. The Battle of the Sacred Springs Sect, the destruction of 4 6th-grade evil sects in Huayang County, and the frightening of the peak martial king under the life and death arena. Many things combined made Iron Bone's reputation soar. To be exact, the name of Iron Bone had already resounded throughout southwest Yangzhou. The most shocking thing was that this was only a 7th-grade sect. Ha ha ha. At the certification headquarters in southwest Yangzhou, Elder Zhou received the news and laughed heartily. Sect leader Jun, everything you've done during this period of time is very explosive. He had personally certified the top 3 of Iron Bone. Now that he had performed so strongly, he was naturally in a good mood. Hall Master Yi Tianjian shook his head and said, first, he challenged the Sacred Spring Sect, then offended the Demon Fiend Sect, and now he has a grudge with the God-slaying Hall. This little guy is also a troublemaker. If Jun Changshao heard this, he would definitely argue with him. The reason for challenging the Sacred Springs Sect was that the Spirit Springs Sect had plotted against him first. The reason for offending the Demon Fiend Sect was that the other party wanted to snatch the saber. The God-slaying Hall was also worried about nothing and had to stand up for the destroyed sect. I was just defending myself, how did I cause trouble? If one had to talk about causing trouble, then going to Huayang County to destroy the 4 evil sects could barely be counted. But then again, only others were allowed to bully their own disciples openly, but they couldn't bring their disciples to bully them. Han Shan asked Shide, someone slandered me, bullied me, humiliated me, laughed at me, despised me, cheated me, how should I deal with it? Shide said, just tolerate him, let him, avoid him, tolerate him, respect him, and ignore him. Wait a few more years, then look at him. This was a kind of open-minded, detached, magnanimous, and free and easy performance. If Han Shan asked Jun Changshao, his answer would definitely be, just scold him, spit on him, hit him, kick him, beat him, torture him, and torture him to death. After this, look at him, he's absolutely obedient. Unbelievable, unbelievable. In the main hall of the Long family in Longyang City, the current patriarch of the Long family, Long Padian, sat at the head of the table, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had already received the news that the Iron Bone had Wu Huang and scared away the experts of the God-slaying Hall. He had also heard a little about this Iron Bone clan after challenging the Haoqi sect, but he didn't pay attention to it. After all, it was just a low-level sect from a low-level county. Even if an 8th-rate sect defeated a 6th-rate sect, it wasn't worth paying attention to. Who would have thought that they would first challenge the Sacred Springs sect and then defeat 2 martial kings? All kinds of news came in one go, so it was hard for him not to pay attention to it. Patriarch. An elder of the Long family said, I heard that many youths who weren't very talented would have a good improvement after joining the Iron Bone. The number 1 genius of Qingyang County, Li Qingyang, joined the Iron Bone when he was only at the 10th stage of the Meridian Opening Realm. Now, he has already entered the 6th stage of the Martial Master Realm. His progress can be said to be rapid. Another elder said. TSK. Someone praised, this sect leader Jun is not simple. Patriarch. The elder who spoke first said, this old man thinks that we can choose a few disciples with ordinary talent to join the Iron Bone. Perhaps they will have a good improvement. Our Long family's direct descendants are all outstanding. It's not easy to find those with ordinary talent. Someone said narcissistically. If Xiang didn't run away, letting him cultivate in the Iron Bone would not be better than idling at home. As soon as these words were said, the elders immediately shook their heads. Although their Long family's direct descendants were not all top geniuses, if they were released, the big sects and even sects would definitely fight for them. The only exception was that he had a high spiritual root, but he couldn't cultivate the family's martial arts. Humph. Long Padian slapped the armrest and said angrily, let that brat manage the business, but he was unwilling to sneak away. When we find him, we must punish him severely. All the elders were silent. They knew that the patriarch was just talking. If he really wanted to punish his own son, it would definitely be a few dozen beatings. Patriarch. At this moment, the guard at the door hurried over and said, "Young Master Ziyang is back. P.S. Here's another chapter. Quick, quick, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, let's go." Chapter 390. Long Ziyang's father was Long Patian. In the eyes of the servants, he was the young master, and no one dared to offend him. The kind of trash that could not cultivate and would be kicked by all kinds of brainless servants was very rare in the Falling Star continent. Therefore, when the guard reported, not only did he call him Young Master Ziyang, his tone was also respectful. "What?" Long Patian stood up and said, "That little bastard is back." As a father, he definitely doted on his child. However, with so many elders present, he could only pretend to be angry and say, "Good, capture him and punish him according to the family law." Black lines immediately appeared on the elders' foreheads. If our Long family's family law was to be beaten, if this were to spread, we would definitely be laughed at. Patriarch. The guard said, "Young Master Ziyang brought back quite a few people. They have already entered the inner courtyard." "He brought a lot of people?" Long Patian was startled and walked out of the hall. The few elders of the Long family hurriedly followed, thinking unhappily, did this brat forget that not just anyone can enter the Long family? The Long family was one of the 3 great families in Longyang City. In terms of strength, compared to the Sacred Springs Sect and the Tsangshan Sect, they were definitely stronger. Ordinary people could not casually enter this kind of family. Even if the patriarchs of small and medium-sized families came to visit, they would have to politely wait for the notification. If they were allowed to enter, they could only sigh and leave. Long Ziyang bringing people in without permission was a big problem. Fortunately, he had a father who was the patriarch of the family to protect him. Otherwise, he would not only be punished by the family law, he would also be punished severely. Inner courtyard. Jun Changshao led the disciples and stood on the martial arts practice field. "This Long family is really impressive." Su Xiaoma stood at the back, looking around with his eyes wide open. He was deeply shocked by the magnificent buildings around him. Tian Qi and Li Fei also looked like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden. Lu Qianqian and Yi Xingchen were both people who had seen the world. One continued to be cold while the other continued to be arrogant. Li Qingyang was also looking and memorizing some of the good architectural styles. He secretly thought that he could use it as a reference for the next time when the sect was remodeling. Look at this awareness. It would be a waste of talent if he wasn't given the position of head of internal affairs. "Look at you guys." Jun Changshao said, "Straighten your backs for this seat." "Yes." Su Xiaoma and the others held their heads high and their chests out. With their hands behind their backs, they stood as straight as a pole. "Sect leader." Long Ziyang said, "I'll go inform them." "Sect leader?" The guards who followed him in were all dumbfounded. This young man who looked like he was only 18 or 19 years old was the sect leader of a sect? Also, the young master had been away from home for such a long time. Had he entered a sect? Cough, cough. At this moment, Patriarch Long walked out of the hall with the elders. When he saw his son, he scolded him to his face, "You bastard, where have you been all this time?" The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. "Isn't this my iron bone?" Plop. When Long Ziyang saw Long Patian, his legs went soft and he immediately knelt on the ground. When he was young, he was mischievous and would often be punished by the patriarch. As he grew older, not only did he grow taller, his butt was also beaten until it was round and perky. Don't believe it? If he lifted the back of his school uniform, he would definitely be able to see Long Ziyang's perky butt. Because his upbringing was too strict, Long Ziyang developed a strong fear of his father. Especially when he was angry, he would definitely be so scared that his legs would not listen to him. Jun Changshao's face darkened. "Ziyang, this seat once said, a man's knees do not kneel to the heavens or the earth, but only to the parents who gave birth to you and raised you." He wanted his disciples to have backbone and integrity. Even if the other party was the head of the family, even if he was a junior, he must not kneel. Sect leader, Long Xiang lowered his voice and said, He is my father, father is not, father. Jun Changxiao's serious face instantly disappeared. He pretended to look at the spectacular building, and said, then continue to kneel. This change in attitude was too quick. Xiang. Long Padian looked at Jun Changxiao, Li Qingyang and the others, and said with a gloomy face, it's one thing to run away from home, but why did you bring so many people back? What kind of place do you think the Long family is? Father. Long Xiang anxiously said, he is. Just as he was about to speak, a Long family elder behind him coldly shouted, how can this kind of person step into my Long family, quickly scram. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Were all the big families so powerful? Sorry. Jun Changxiao spread out his hands and said, I have always walked, I don't know how to roll, why don't you personally demonstrate? Pucci. Lu Wancher covered her mouth and laughed. The sect leader's words were so funny. The Long family elder glared at him and said, Brat, are you provoking this old man? No, no, no. Jun Changxiao raised both of his hands, extended his middle finger, and said with a face full of disdain, this is called provocation. Indeed. Giving the middle finger to others was definitely a provocation. If this was on Earth, especially to foreigners who were very sensitive to the middle finger, they would definitely fight. Although the falling star continent did not have such an insulting gesture like giving the middle finger, the Long family elder could tell from Jun Changxiao's expression that he was humiliating him. In front of his own house, he dared to be so arrogant. This was unbearable. Hoo-hoo. The Long family elder's sleeves fluttered without any wind, and the cultivation of the sixth stage Wuzong instantly erupted. A gurgling stream of brilliant spirit energy spread out, and that old face was filled with anger. Shua! Shua! Xiao Ziji immediately stood in front of the sect leader and communicated with the iron shield in the space ring, allowing it to be taken out at any time. Iron Bone was the meat shield, and it was his responsibility to protect the sect leader from harm at all times. Li Qingyang, Li Fei, and Tian Qi also came over. Lu Qianqian raised her eyebrows, and her white and cold jade-like hand was already quietly placed on the hilt of her sword. On the other hand, Yi Xingqian did not move at all. He looked at the Long family elder who had unleashed his cultivation and said disdainfully, vulgar person. Long Xiang panicked. He hurriedly said, Father, this is, Xiang. Jun Changxiao interrupted, this should be the Long family's special way of treating guests. Since I'm here, I naturally have to experience it. After saying that, he waved his hand and said, leave. Shua! Xiao Ziji, Li Qingyang, and the others left. Arrogant junior, you dare to behave atrociously in my Long family, I'm afraid you've eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. The Long family elder shouted coldly, and the cultivation around him became more and more powerful. Long Xiang's mouth twitched. My second elder, the sect leader has completely defeated a rank 2 martial king. If you think you're stronger than a martial king, then continue your show. Long Xiao, wait a moment. The second elder's hands moved, and just as he was about to use the Long family's martial skill, Long Padian raised his hand to stop him. You call yourself this lord, could it be that you're someone with status? Not high. Jun Changxiao said, sect leader. Sect leader? The Long family elders immediately sneered. This young man looked to be only 18 or 19 years old, and he was the leader of a sect? This bragging was quite good. Or was it because the Iron Bones sect leader was young and famous, so many youths who hadn't even grown hair all imitated him and casually pulled a few people to form a sect? Long Padian said, what sect? He understood his son, and he wouldn't bring strangers in for no reason. These youths might not be simple, or they might be brought in to find a good job in the family. My son has finally grown up. After going out for a trip, he even brought back a few youths with a good aura to add to the family. Iron Bone Jing sect. Jun Changxiao's voice was very calm. But when Long Padian and the Long family elders heard this, they were all dumbstruck. P.S. Ever since the book was published, the weekly recommendation votes have not exceeded 10,000. This week, there is only a little more than a day left, and there are already more than 8,000 votes. Whether or not it can exceed 10,000 depends on everyone. Chapter 391. What were Long Padian and the Long family elders talking about in the hall just now? That's right. They were talking about Iron Bone. They were thinking of finding a few ordinary direct descendants to join this sect and see if they could be nurtured into talents. Now, the young man standing in the martial arts practice field actually said that he was the sect leader of Iron Bone clan. They were a little caught off guard and a little fucked up. Long Padian said in disbelief, "You are Jun Changshao." Had the Long family heard of his name? Jun Changshao suddenly felt a little smug, but he still said seriously, "I am Jun Changshao." This was a very beautiful way of saying things. However, what he got in return was a wave of suspicion and doubt from the Long family elders. The news said that the sect leader of Iron Bone was young, but Longyang City was at least 2,000 miles away from Qingyang City. Why would he come here? Xiang. Long Padian looked at Long Xiang and said in a deep voice, "Is that so?" He was not sure, so he could only ask his son. After all, he was the one who brought him here. "Father, it's like this." Long Xiang said truthfully. Humph, the second elder, who had forcefully held back his move and almost suffered internal injuries, pulled a long face and said, "Who knows if he's just an imposter? In my opinion." The third elder said, Xiang was worried that he would run away from home and be punished when he returned, so he found an outsider to impersonate him. It wasn't that they were stupid. It was that Long Xiang suddenly brought back the sect leader of Iron Bone, who had been in the limelight recently. This was really unrealistic. Xiang. An elder joked, "Why did you only bring back a county sect leader? Why didn't you bring back the Night Emperor who died thousands of years ago for us to take a look?" Everyone laughed heartily at once. Yi Xingqian was stunned. He didn't expect that this small family would have heard of his emperor title. Of course. Bringing back the Night Emperor was just to tease him. In fact, Long Xiang had really pulled Night Emperor over, but it wasn't his original body, but his reborn body. Long Padian was also suspicious. After all, his son had run away from home for so long. It was quite possible that he was worried about being punished. Jun Changshao felt depressed. In the past, other people thought that he didn't look like a sect leader. Now, they didn't think that he was the Iron Bone sect leader. Could this be any worse? Yes. Depends on my mood. Sect Master Jun, is it? Long Padian cupped his hands and said, "Seeing is believing. Please. Could you be more sincere? The expression on your face shows that you don't believe that I'm Iron Bone sect leader at all." Patriarch. The second elder said, "Whether or not this boy is the Iron Bone sect leader, won't we know if I test him?" This, Long Padian was very conflicted. Sect Master Jun, what do you think? It doesn't matter. Jun Changshao shrugged. He knew that this test was actually just a fight. Huff huff. The second elder's sleeves bulged again, and pure elemental energy burst out. High rank 6 Wuzong. The system analyzed. Strength is around 270,000 gene. Only high rank. Only 270,000. Jun Changshao didn't take it to heart. After all, he was a high rank 2 Wuzong, and his strength was close to 350,000 gene. Sect Master. At this moment, Long Xiang transmitted his voice. Please give me face and don't hit him too hard. The memory of instantly killing a rank 2 martial king on the life and death platform was still fresh in his mind. He worshipped him very much. He was afraid that the sect master would accidentally kill the second elder. It was the second elder's suggestion to take care of the family business. He had always been against him. Long Xiang naturally didn't ask the sect master for mercy because he cared about him. He was mainly worried that the family and the sect would become enemies. Yes. Jun Changshao said, I'll give you face and beat him up lightly. Long Xiang probably didn't know that the reason why he could instantly kill a rank 2 martial king was because of the strength amplification talisman. Now that he had nothing, it was impossible to kill the second elder with 1 or 2 punches. Sect Master Jun, the second elder said coldly, are you ready? Jun Changshao raised his other hand and said with a smile, please enlighten me. Huff huff. The second elder's hands moved in the air, and powerful spiritual energy started to swirl like water. Dragon roaring in the 9 heavens. He suddenly pushed his palms forward, and the circular spiritual energy ball formed an illusory dragon. It dragged its long body and roared as it charged forward. Huff huff. The wind howled, and the force was unrestrained. The dragon formed by the martial skill was not only powerful, it was also very lifelike. It was 1,000 times better than the special effects in the local dramas. Jun Changshao stood in the martial arts arena. His black hair fluttered in the wind, revealing a calm and handsome face that was so charming that it could kill a person to death. However, his eyes were closed. Seeing this, the Long family's elders sneered. This guy definitely knew that he couldn't dodge, so he chose to give up. As long as he hit, he definitely wouldn't be the Iron Bone sect master. Everyone had heard of Jun Changzhao's matter. Not only did he instantly kill a rank 2 martial king at the life and death stage at the foot of the mountain, he also defeated the patriarch at the Sacred Spring sect. The strength of the second elder's attack was around 300,000 jin. If he couldn't withstand it, he would definitely be a fake brat. There was a price to pay for cooperating with that brat Xiang. It was strange. Facing the roaring dragon, Li Qingyang and the others clearly saw that Jun Changxiao's eyes were closed, but they weren't worried at all. This level of strength was very strong for them, but to injure the sect master was a bit wishful thinking. Fire, the essence of bewilderment. Propriety by nature, a good person asks what's on his mind. Bowing down to him with propriety, everyone can comply. As the dragon attacked, Jun Changshao, who was standing proudly, silently chanted the incantation in his heart. The exquisite fire in his dantian became restless, instantly forming a net of fire that enveloped his spirit core and many other cyclones. Swoosh! Suddenly, Jun Changshao opened his eyes. 2 blazing flames flickered in his pupils. Whoosh whoosh! In an instant, boundless flames spread around his body. His black hair and eyebrows seemed to have turned red under the flames. Lu Qianqian was stunned. The strength of the flames released by the sect master made her, an ice martial cultivator, feel uneasy. She wasn't the only one. Yi Xingchen was also shocked. As for Long Padian and the others, they were a bit far away. When they felt the heat wave coming, Jun Changshao had already raised his hand and chopped down. Red sky raging flame cut. Whoosh whoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, the rising flames instantly gathered together and whizzed in the direction of the falling palm. In the process of galloping, it evolved into a flaming palm in the shape of a knife. Hiss hiss hiss, the flames and the air collided violently, producing crackling sounds. Not good. The second elder's face suddenly changed. He wanted to withdraw his move, but it was too late. Boom. The blazing flame palm domineeringly blasted on the roaring dragon, directly scattering the gathered spiritual energy and evaporating it in an instant. Thump thump thump. The second elder, who was forced to retreat until he reached the door of the hall. His arms grabbed the edge of the door, and his 10 fingers sank into the door frame. Only then did he stabilize his body with difficulty. Wah! His meridians were disordered, and blood spurted out. One word, miserable. Swoosh! Jun Changshao waved his sleeve, and the flame palm that filled the area between the hall and the martial arts field dissipated instantly, turning into wisps of fire attribute that returned to the main body. From the moment he made the move to everyone's thoughts, to the moment the second elder vomited blood. It seemed to take a long time, but it actually happened in a flash. Long Padian was dumbfounded. The elders of the Long family were also dumbfounded. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others standing behind Sect Master Jun also widened their eyes. Obviously, even they didn't expect the Sect Master to suddenly use such a powerful move. Yi Xingqian and Lu Qianqian said firmly in their hearts, this is definitely a divine martial art technique. P.S. A real man has another wave of orgasms after the climax. That's all for today. If it's midnight, it should be one update. I'll continue to write tomorrow. Also, thank you for the reader's tips. Finally, please recommend me, please vote. Chapter 392. A divine rank martial skill like the Scarlet Sky Raging Flame / inherited the advantages of the system and was very easy to comprehend. What about the Ling Jian divine art? This kind of sword skill was like a heavenly book to a martial cultivator. However, for a sword cultivator with the way of the sword, it was also very easy to comprehend the first move. Not to mention, as a fire attribute martial cultivator, Jun Changshao was able to cultivate the Scarlet Sky Raging Flame / with twice the result with half the effort. Therefore, when facing the second Elder's Dragon Roar of the Nine Heavens, he directly used it. Power. Jun Changshao thought, it's not very strong. The Scarlet Sky Raging Flame / that he displayed, in terms of strength, was only around 400,000 kilograms. According to the introduction, this could be used as a trump card. The system was speechless, the host has only comprehended a little, so its power is naturally not strong. That's true. From the time he obtained the Scarlet Sky Raging Flame / to the time he used it, it had only been a day or two. Moreover, the system continued, the power of this move also depends on the accumulation of power. For the host to condense flames and then use it, it is reasonable that the power is weak. Understood. Jun Changshao cupped his hands in a carefree manner, and said, everyone, do you believe me now? Long Padian and the Long family elder regained their senses and looked at the young man in the martial arts arena. Their eyes were still filled with shock and disbelief. With just one move, he was able to force the second elder to retreat and vomit blood. This child's strength was definitely strong. In the southwest Yangzhou, such a young martial cultivator with such a high cultivation, in their knowledge, there was only the Iron Bone sect leader who had recently risen to power. If you still don't believe me, Jun Changshao said, I can take out the sect seal to prove my identity. Sect leader Jun. Long Padian cupped his hands and said, please forgive me for not welcoming you when you visit my Long family. This was very sincere. The Long family patriarch no longer cared if the other party was the Iron Bone sect leader or not. Just by having such a strong cultivation, he definitely had a great background. Please take a seat. Long Padian turned to the side and invited him in. The elders of the Long family all made way, their faces filled with respect. Although the Iron Bone sect was only a seventh-rate sect, what they had done during this period of time, they were not inferior to a fourth-rate sect at all. In the hall, Long Padian sat at the head of the table and glanced at the disciples standing behind Jun Changshao. Sect Master Jun, are these your disciples? Not bad, Jun Changshao said. The Long family's elder carefully sized them up and thought to himself, as expected, they are not ordinary people. Before they knew their identities, they had thought that Li Qingyang and the others were special. Now that they knew that they were Iron Bone disciples, they looked at them in a different light. Wait a minute. Why did Long Xiang bring Iron Bone sect leader here? Long Padian also realized this and he thought more than they did. He hurriedly asked, Sect Master Jun, could it be that my son has joined your sect? He had deduced this from the way Long Xiang addressed him as sect leader. Under normal circumstances, when an outsider addressed a person as the leader of a sect, they would use their surname. If they didn't, it meant that they were from the same sect. Not bad. Jun Changshao said, recently, Xiang has been cultivating in this secluded corner of mine. Long Potion's face immediately turned red. Sect Master Jun, he clasped his hands and said apologetically, I didn't mean to say that just now. Please don't take it to heart. Long Xiang, who was sitting at the end of the table, was stunned when he saw his father being so polite. He clearly remembered that even if the patriarch of a fifth-rate sect came to visit, his father would still be very dignified. Why did it seem like he was a different person now? Because the Iron Bones sect had Wu Huang. This kind of expert directly raised the status of a seventh-rate sect by many levels. Even the Long family's patriarch didn't dare to slight him. If a ninth-rate sect had a martial emperor, they would definitely come from all directions to pay their respects. If I take it to heart. Jun Changshao paused for a moment, then smiled at the second elder and said, "This elder won't just vomit blood." This pretentious act was round and smooth, full and moist. The second elder, who was recuperating, felt a chill down his spine when he heard this. This child instantly killed a rank 2 martial king on the life and death stage. If he wanted to kill him just now, he would probably be a corpse now. Long Padian smiled awkwardly and said, "It's my son's fortune to be able to enter your sect." Although he said that, he didn't think so in his heart. There was no denying it. The Iron Bones sect was in the limelight recently and had great potential. However, it was still a seventh-rate sect. His son had a high-quality spiritual root, so it was worth it to join the Iron Bones sect. Xiang usually works very hard and his growth is also very fast. He has already been promoted to an inner disciple, Jun Changshao said. Long Padian smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern, Sect Master Jun." In his opinion, it was very normal for his son to become an inner disciple. However, the Long family's patriarch probably didn't know that Long Xiang's cultivation was high before he entered the sect. If he entered the sect a bit later, it would be very difficult to compete for an inner disciple spot in the sect competition. In short, the Iron Bones sect had all sorts of resources. As long as the spiritual root wasn't too low and started early, it might not be weaker than a high-quality spiritual root. And this was also what Jun Changshao was pursuing. "I don't need you to have a high aptitude to join the sect. I only need you to work hard enough to cultivate." Sect Master Jun, Long Padian asked, "Why have you come this time?" "I heard that the Long family is about to hold a family competition. Ziyang wants to participate, so I came uninvited." Jun Changshao said. "So that's how it is." Long Padian understood and was overjoyed in his heart. The disciples of the Iron Bones sect, under Sect Master Jun's guidance, their strength has increased extremely quickly. My son should be able to perform well this time. As a father, he was very strict. But he also hated iron for not becoming steel. If his son became stronger in the Iron Bones sect, he would naturally be very gratified. The few elders of the Long family also understood. Long Xiang left home to join the Iron Bones sect to learn from his master. Now that he had returned, he wanted to show off his skills in the family competition. That's right. This was the purpose of Long Xiang's return home. He wasn't trying to show off, he was trying to tell the Long family. Even if I, Long Xiang, am unable to cultivate the family's martial arts, I will still be stronger than you all when I return from cultivation this time. I will still be able to oppress you all. Young people were unyielding and could not tolerate being looked down upon by their own clansmen, so they had to prove themselves. I can do it, I can do it. P.S. I'll update at midnight and continue during the day. On the last day of the weekend, I'll leave it to everyone to see if the recommendation votes can break through 10,000. Chapter 393. Have you heard? Long Xiang, who ran away from home, is back. What? That fellow is back? Did the patriarch spank his butt? He didn't receive any punishment. That can't be, right? He abandoned the family business and disappeared for almost a year. He didn't receive any punishment. In the inner courtyard, many of the Long clan's direct descendants were discussing. From their expressions and words, it wasn't hard to tell that they wanted to see Long Xiang embarrass himself. Although he was the son of the patriarch, he wasn't welcomed by many of his cousins because he couldn't practice the Long clan's martial arts. Furthermore, he was the son of the patriarch. Otherwise, Long Xiang's treatment in the Long clan would be similar to that of the fallen genius, Xiao Ziji. I heard that Xiang brought the Iron Bones sect master over. The patriarch and the elders were very enthusiastic. They didn't even think of punishing him. Iron Bone? Isn't that the sect that has been making a lot of noise in the city recently? I heard that the Iron Bones sect master is around the same age as us, but he was able to defeat Wu Zong at the peak and even a rank 2 martial king. Is he that powerful? You definitely didn't expect that Xiang has already joined the Iron Bone. He came back to participate in the clan tournament. A trash who can't even learn the most basic martial arts of the Long clan dares to participate in the clan tournament. Who gave him such courage? I also heard that many of the Iron Bone's disciples came. The patriarch has arranged for them to stay in a small courtyard in the west courtyard. I heard that the disciples of this sect have fought with the disciples of the Sacred Springs sect for over 70 rounds. They haven't lost a single round. They are very powerful. Let's go and take a look. In front of the courtyard in the west courtyard. Some of the Long clan's disciples were looking inside while others were blocking the entrance. Unfortunately, after looking for a long time, they didn't see anyone coming out of the room. This made them puzzled. Was there anyone living inside? There was someone living inside. The one living inside was Jun Changshao and a group of disciples. They were cultivating in their own rooms, unlike the direct descendants of the Long clan. The clan tournament was about to begin, but they still had the leisure to watch the show. Jun Changshao brought his disciples along with Long Xiang. Firstly, he wanted to help him avoid punishment. Secondly, he hoped to win first place and make Iron Bone famous. This was his home ground. Therefore, he had Li Qingyang and the others cultivate in their rooms instead of showing off in the Long family to prevent them from stealing the limelight. Although Su Xiaoma and Li Fei really wanted to go out and have fun in Longyang City, they could only cultivate in peace in their rooms. As for Lu Wancher, because she was not bound by cultivation, she often brought Yao Menjing out to play. When she came back, she would also buy a lot of strange gadgets. 3 days later, on the eve of the clan's tournament, Long Xiang found Jun Changshao and said with a bitter face, "Sect Master, because I came back to participate in the intersect tournament, many of my cousins who were in closed-door cultivation came out and applied to participate in the clan tournament. Scared? I'm not afraid, I'm just a little nervous." Long Xiang's talent was not bad, but not only did his cousins have high-grade spirit roots, they were also extremely talented in comprehending the family's martial arts. Their strength was much stronger than his. For example, his third cousin had already broken through to the 6th grade martial master before he left home and had grasped many of the Long family's martial techniques. There was also his eldest and second cousins who had entered the 7th grade martial master early on. The former even had a top-grade spirit root and could be said to be the strongest direct descendant of the Long family's new generation. Speaking of which, the age difference between Long Xiang and his cousins was only 2 or 3 years. Why was there such a huge difference in their realms? It was very simple. They cultivated the Long family's unique mental cultivation method, the Dragon Breath Art. Its quality had already reached the high level of the top grade, and it was said that it was comparable to the holy rank. The reason why the Long family was able to establish themselves in Longyang City and had the strength comparable to a 4th or 5th-rate sect was all because of the Dragon Breath, this high-level mental cultivation method. In the Falling Star continent, there were countless forces that relied on mental cultivation methods to establish sections. The most famous one was Taishian Shengzong, who used the remnant of Taishuan's Ice Heart art to forcefully create a first-rate sect. The Long family's mental cultivation method was very strong, and the direct descendants' cultivation speed was very fast. Long Xiang's talent was not bad, but he could not cultivate any of the family's martial techniques, so he could only choose the universal mental cultivation method. It was normal for him to be left far behind by his cousins. It was because he knew that the family's martial techniques were very strong that he was nervous when the competition was about to start. He was afraid that he would not be able to win against his cousin and not be able to make a name for the Iron Bone. I have a heart-calming liquid here. You won't be nervous after drinking it. Jun Changshao threw a small bottle over. Long Xiang was a little confused. Out of absolute trust in the sect leader, he opened the bottle and drank it all. The taste was a little bitter and a little mellow of malt. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a strong aura burst out of Long Xiang's body. In just a moment, his perception of the heaven and earth attribute was also instantly strengthened. His realm had also entered the 5th grade martial master level from the 4th grade. That's right. He had drunk the top grade aptitude modification liquid. Sect. Sect leader. Feeling the changes in his body and the increase in his realm, Long Xiang's eyes immediately widened, and he said, "This. What's going on?" Jun Changshao said, "Are you still nervous?" Caw! Long Xiang clenched his fists, and an even stronger power gathered in his meridians. His gaze was burning as he said, "I'm not nervous at all, I even want to dance. Let's go learn how to meow and meow together." Early the next morning, a dynamic and rhythmic tune resounded throughout the Long family's inner courtyard. In the courtyard, Lu Wancher and Yao Menjing stood in front, learning how to meow and meow. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others stood behind to dance. Although they were not in the sect, they could not miss out on morning exercises every day. What's that sound? The direct descendants of the Long family who had woken up early heard the sound and came over. Passing through the open courtyard door, they were all dumbfounded when they saw the Iron Bone disciples doing strange actions. How embarrassing! A man is still pouting. If this were to be seen by outsiders, my Long family's face would definitely be lost by that guy. The direct descendants of the Long family all despised him. If it was in the past, being watched by so many people, especially those of the same clan, Long Xiang would definitely be very embarrassed. But now, he was completely immersed in dancing. This kind of dancing morning exercise can make one feel good. After you experience it for yourself, you will be unable to extricate yourself from it like me. The song ended. Jun Changshao turned off the magically modified sound system and said, "Let's go." Shwa! With a wave of his sleeve, he walked forward. The disciples followed behind and arrived at the outer courtyard under the gazes of the direct descendants of the Long family. Today was the day of the Long family's great competition. Although the sky had just brightened, many direct descendants had already gathered in the martial arts arena. Sect leader Jun walked over with his disciples, immediately attracting their attention. The ones following behind should all be Iron Bone disciples. Why are there 6 or 7-year-old children? It doesn't look like much. It's really unbelievable to win more than 70 matches against the Sacred Spring sect in a row. The arrival of Jun Changshao and his disciples caused a heated discussion among the direct descendants of the Long family. Little brother Ziyang. At this moment, an extraordinary-looking young man smiled and greeted him as he walked over. Long Xiang frowned slightly, but still called out, "Second cousin." Second cousin Long Zishan walked in front of him and said in a low voice, "Joining the Iron Bone and participating in the great competition, you're quite promising now. However," he grinned and said, "when the great competition starts later, if you meet me, don't run around the martial arts arena with your head in your hands like last time." Long Xiang's face immediately turned ugly. Su Xiaoma, who was at the side, could tell from Long Zishan's smile that he was mocking his junior brother. He almost couldn't help but kick him. Calm down, calm down. The sect leader had said that today was the stage for his junior brother's performance, so he couldn't steal the limelight. P.S. When I woke up, I had almost 12,000 recommendation votes. Thank you everyone, continue to ask for recommendation votes, monthly votes. I also entered battle mode and sent it out. Chapter 394. The Long family's clan competition was similar to the Iron Bone competition. It was also divided into levels, and those with similar strength would fight together. However, there was another way to declare war on someone. Last year, before Long Xiang ran away from home, there was a clan competition, and he was unfortunately challenged by many of his cousins. Without exception, all of them were defeated. In terms of strength, he was definitely stronger than his cousin who started cultivating martial arts later. However, he did not have any good martial skills and was beaten to a sorry state. Especially after being challenged by his second cousin, he ran away with his head in his hands, almost making Long Potion's nose crooked from anger. Him. After it ended, he was spanked again. In the Falling Star continent, the strength of a martial artist was not only dependent on his own strength, but also on external objects. For example, martial skills, weapons, and treasures. If a 5th or 6th level meridian opening cultivator cultivated a higher level martial skill or had a good weapon, he would definitely be able to defeat a 11th or 12th level meridian opening cultivator. The most typical example was Jun Changshao. He had just transmigrated and participated in the recruitment of the 100 sects. Relying on the low-grade cold-edge sword, he cut off an arm of the Spirit Spring Sect's elder. You said he was stronger than Wei Nu. In terms of realm alone, the difference was too great. To be able to injure the other party was due to the weapon. Because Long Xiang did not have a suitable martial skill, he could not even beat his younger cousin who cultivated the family's martial arts. Therefore, he could only run away from home and learn from his master. Second cousin. He said proudly, I am no longer the me from a year ago. This cousin was just like his name. In front of the Long Xiang, he was like an insurmountable mountain. Now. It was very ordinary. Is that so? Long Zishan smiled, turned around and left a message. I hope that when the clan competition starts, it will be an eye-opener for me. It's more than an eye-opener. Long Xiang clenched his fists, and said in his heart, I will make it unforgettable for you for the rest of your life. The iron bone had become the focus of the Long family's direct descendants, and Long Xiang had also become their topic of discussion. Many of the direct descendants who had abused him in the past naturally didn't think that he would be very strong after returning this time. In fact, if they were more well-informed, they would know that Long Xiang had also participated in the battle at the Sacred Spring Sect and had defeated an inner disciple cleanly. Without little brother Xiang around, we didn't have much fun. Now that we're back, we must have some fun. I wonder what level the Patriarch will place him in. Will he be in the ordinary group? If that's the case, we can only wait until it's over and declare war on him. While the direct descendants of the Long family were discussing, they didn't forget to look at Long Xiang with a mocking smile. Junior brother. Su Xiaoma said in a low voice, you're really miserable. Long Xiang's eyes flickered with anger as he said, when it starts, I'll make sure none of them can laugh. A short while later. Long Padian walked out of the hall, then cupped his hands towards Jun Changshao and arranged a good viewing area. Junior brother, do your best. Junior brother, you are the strongest among the direct descendants of the Long family. Junior brother, don't disappoint us. When they were heading towards the spectator area, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma and the others all cheered for him. However, the words you are the strongest among the direct descendants of the Long family immediately attracted a wave of sighs and disdain from the direct descendants of the Long family. Because the large competition was held every year, the direct descendants all knew the rules, so Long Padian did not waste any time and directly announced the division of the direct descendants participating in the large competition. There were a total of 3 groups. The strongest group, the middle group, and the ordinary group. Long Zai, the middle group. Long Ziming, the ordinary group. Long Zishan, the strongest group. Long Xiang, the strongest group. Gah! The entire martial arts arena immediately fell silent, and the direct descendants of the Long family all had looks of disbelief. Did I hear wrongly? Long Xiang, that guy, entered the strongest group. What a joke! That guy joined the ordinary group last year, and now he directly applied for the strongest group. Was his brain kicked by a donkey? Or was it that after running away from home for a year, his skin itched so badly that he had to find his cousin to ruthlessly beat him up? The Long family's elders were also astonished. The Iron Bone sect leader was very strong in teaching disciples. However, that brat was only at the 10th stage of the meridian opening realm before he left home. How strong could he be in a short year? Long Xiang straightened his back. He was the one who had applied to enter the strongest group from his father. Since he was here, he would fight the strongest direct descendant of the Long family. Only then would he be able to prove his strength. Cousins. Long Xiang's eyes flashed with fighting spirit and said, "Tremble in fear." After the groups were divided, the large competition began. The first to enter was the ordinary group. The direct descendants of the Long family were all at the channel opening realm, so it was very boring to fight. Li Qingyang and the others sat on the chairs, so bored that they almost fell asleep. On the other hand, Jun Changshao was watching with relish. He was not watching the fights, but the strength of the direct descendants of the Long family. To be honest, as expected of a family comparable to a 4th or 5th-rate sect, everyone who went up was at the 10th stage of the meridian opening realm, and their understanding of martial techniques was not bad. This is the foundation. Jun Changshao thought to himself. After 2 hours of fighting, a 12th stage meridian opening realm disciple of the Long family successfully won the championship of the ordinary group. Next was the competition of the intermediate group. The direct descendants of the Long family were all at the martial disciple level, and there were even many peak-level martial disciples. Tsk tisk. Jun Changshao sighed, "A big family is a big family." The strength of the intermediate group was higher, and the fights were quite exciting, so Li Qingyang and the others were also interested in watching. Occasionally, they would also compare the direct descendants of the Long family with some of their fellow disciples. In the end, the conclusion was that if many outer sect disciples participated, they would be able to beat the direct descendants of the Long family to the ground. After more than an hour, the intermediate group ended, and a 9th-stage martial disciple won first place. Next, it was the finale of the competition between the strongest groups. To be able to enter this level, the weakest of the direct descendants of the Long family was at least a martial master. Long Xiang, Long Zisong. Long Padian announced the first battle of the strongest group. Li Qingyang and the others immediately became spirited, but when they saw the direct descendant called Long Zisong go up the stage first, and the strongest aura he emitted was only a 2nd or 3rd stage martial master, they lost interest. Damn it! Can't you find a decent opponent for your junior brother? The direct descendants of the Long family all sneered. It would be very interesting to see Long Xiang get beaten up in the first battle of the strongest group. Little brother Xiang. Long Zisong laughed, "You didn't sign up for the ordinary group and came to the strongest group to join in the fun. Do you want to be beaten up by me like last year?" Long Xiang, who walked up the stage, did not say a word. "Begin." An elder of the Long family shouted. Shua! Long Zisong used the Long family's martial art, dragon swimming steps, and circled around. However, in the process of moving, a palm cut through the void and fiercely swung over. Pa! A crisp sound was heard. They only saw how Long Zisong flew out in a fancy way, and then rotated 160 degrees in the air and fell fiercely outside the martial arts practice field, a bright red palm print on his face. Good! Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and Tian Qi stood up and applauded. The direct descendants of the Long family, who originally wanted to see how Long Xiang would be beaten up by their cousin, were all dumbfounded. When they came back to their senses, they saw that the guy had already walked down the stage. The elder who just shouted the start of the battle twitched the corner of his mouth. It seemed that it had only been a few seconds, and the battle was over. Ha! Long Zishan crossed his arms and looked at Long Xiang who was walking down the stage. He smiled with interest. My cousin has really grown a lot after returning this time. Chapter 395. Long Xiang's swift and decisive defeat of Long Zisong caused the direct descendants of the Long family to be dumbfounded. Of course. A powerful direct descendant like Long Zishan did not take it to heart. After all, if he were the one on stage, he could also instantly defeat a rank 2 or 3 martial master. It was undeniable. Long Xiang, who had only left for a year, was able to achieve this level. He had grown a lot. Long Potion's face was expressionless, but his heart was blooming with joy. A year ago, his son was tortured by a direct descendant of a level 7 or 8 Meridian opening realm in the grand competition. In a short period of time, he was able to torture a beginner-level martial master. This growth speed was earth-shattering. Don't worry. Patriarch Long's happiness was yet to come. Because as the strongest group's competition continued, as Long Xiang went on stage one after another, regardless of whether his opponent was at rank 3 or rank 4, they were all sent flying. He was so strong that it was completely unreasonable. After cultivating in the sect for so long, he was already very strong. Then, he took the aptitude modification liquid and raised his spirit root to the highest grade. Don't we know if he's strong or not? Plop! In the fourth match, a rank 5 martial master of the Long family's direct descendant fell to the ground outside the martial arts practice field. The Long family's direct descendant was so shocked that he couldn't recover for a long time. Another instant kill. This guy was too strong. Long Zishan, who was still laughing at first, had a serious expression. Although his cousin who was beaten down was weak, his spirit root aptitude was not weak at all. Even if it was him, he might not be able to defeat him cleanly. Sigh. Long Xiang, who was standing on the stage, shook his head and said, "There's not a single one who can fight." Jun Changshao was full of smiles. His disciple was showing off on stage. As the sect leader, he would definitely have face. The Long family's direct descendants' expressions were uglier than the other. The guy who was bullied by them back then suddenly became so awesome. They really couldn't accept it. Long Patian was having a great time. His son had fought 4 matches, from rank 2 all the way to rank 5. All of them were ended quickly. This could only mean that his strength was very strong. Long Patian looked at Jun Changshao, his eyes filled with even more admiration. In just a year's time, his son had become so valiant. This sect leader must have real ability. The elders of the Long family began to ponder. Long Xiang, who seemed to be a very ordinary direct descendant of the family, had been trained to be so valiant by him. If he let the outstanding direct descendant go, wouldn't that be like going to heaven? It was hard to say whether he would ascend to heaven or not. However, based on how Long Xiang had been bullied and ridiculed by the direct descendants of the Long family, it was unlikely that he would have any chance of joining the Iron Bone Society. The battle between the strongest groups was still ongoing, but the atmosphere had changed. In the beginning, many direct descendants of the Long family hoped to be matched with Long Xiang and then ruthlessly trample on him. Now, they were secretly praying that they wouldn't meet this guy. Some things were destined by the heavens, and it was hard to avoid them. In the round of 16, the number plate that Long Zishan drew just happened to match Long Xiang, so the two of them would compete for a spot in the top 8. Here comes the show. Su Xiaoma grinned. Before the large competition began, Long Zishan had ridiculed his junior brother. He stood at the side and wanted to kick him. Now that he had met him so early, it was not a bad thing. Li Qingyang said, "This person is at least an 8th-stage martial master. Junior brother Long shouldn't win too easily." Jun Changshao leaned against the back of his chair, crossed his arms, and looked at Long Xiang who was on the stage, and sent a sound transmission, "Xiang, only this battle can prove yourself." Ta! Long Xiang strode onto the stage and said, "Sect leader, this disciple will use my strength to tell father, to tell everyone in the Long family, that this stage belongs to me, Long Xiang, the Iron Bone clan." His spine was straight, revealing the aura of an iron bone. When the evil sects attacked, Long Xiang did not fight. Because his strength was far inferior to Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others. However, seeing his senior brother defeat his opponents time and time again, he was deeply moved below the stage. Although the clan's grand competition represented him, behind him was the sect leader and the senior brother who defended the sect's honor. In this battle, no matter what, he could not lose. Hoo-hoo! In an instant, Long Xiang's body erupted with a powerful aura, and his eyes flickered with a strong fighting spirit. Sect leader, senior brother, senior sister. He clenched his fists tightly and said loudly with a sound transmission technique, "Today, I, Long Xiang, will continue my undefeated record on the life and death arena." Jun Changshao was speechless. Why did he have to be so hot-blooded to bully a group of little martial masters? Long Zishan, who had just walked onto the stage, frowned and thought to himself, just how strong is this brat? From the initial ridicule to the current caution, it was enough to show that this cousin of his was no longer the same as before. "Begin!" The Long family elder shouted again. Shua! Long Zishan stepped on the dragon's swimming steps and was the first to attack. As an 8th stage martial master, he was clearly much stronger than Long Zisong in terms of using his family's movement technique. With a single step, his afterimage was almost dragged out. Shua! Just as Long Zishan moved, Long Xiang also rushed over with the cloud steps. In terms of speed, it was obvious that he was faster. The Long family's dragon swimming steps, high-grade mid-rank. Was it high? High! However, in front of Iron Bone's cloud steps, it was still a bit weaker. Comparing speed, comparing who is faster, you really can't do it. Shua! Long Xiang took a step forward, and his fist, which carried a strong psionic power, suddenly cut through the void and fiercely blasted over. Rupturing fist, high-grade mortal rank. So fast! Long Zishan was secretly shocked, but he did not hesitate to raise his fist and punch over, and a sound similar to a dragon's roar was heard. Dragon roar fist, high-grade mid-rank. Boom! Boom! Two loud sounds rang out almost at the same time, and layers of psionic power exploded and formed a wave of air that immediately spread out in the martial arts practice field. In the battle area, Long Xiang's right fist punched Long Zishan's chest. Long Zishan's fist also landed on his chest. Both of them were in an attacking posture. Thump 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 thump. Long Zishan explosively retreated, and then spat out a mouthful of blood. Long Xiang also retreated, but only one step. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he said, "Second cousin, I haven't seen you for a year, and your strength is only so-so." There was a difference in strength, but he had the upper hand. Rupturing fist, victory. Shua! Long Padian, who was sitting on the chair, immediately stood up, his eyes flashing with shock. Just now, when the two of them exchanged blows, his son's explosive strength had already reached 80,000 jin, which was not inferior to an 8th-grade martial master like Long Zishan. Could it be? His hands trembled, and he could not help but say, "My son is a 5th-grade martial master?" Patriarch Long Jun Changshao, who was sitting next to him, said, don't be agitated, please sit down and watch the battle." How could Long Padian sit down? He just stood there and watched. The elders of the Long family were all dumbfounded. It was difficult for them to calm down after Long Xiang exploded with such a strong power. No. Impossible. Long Zishan, who had been blasted to the point of vomiting blood, had a look of disbelief in his eyes. Judging from the aura that fellow was emitting, he was clearly only a 5th-grade martial master. Why was his strength not inferior to his at all? Shua! Long Xiang rushed over once again, his right hand formed a palm, and shouted, "Mountain-splitting palm." Who? The wind howled, and waves of air spread in all directions. Seeing this, Long Zishan took a step back and shouted angrily, "Arrogant dragon palm." Who? Boon Long Xiang directly broke through the condensed arrogant dragon palm and used the back of his hand to slash at Long Zishan's left shoulder. The powerful force erupted like a flood. Wah! Long Zishan spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew up and landed heavily at the edge of the martial arts practice field. The direct descendants of the Long family were dumbstruck. In 2 moves, Long Zishan, who was known as one of the strongest direct descendants of the Long family, had been beaten to such a miserable state. Long Xiang walked over step by step and stood in front of his injured second cousin. He looked down at him with the bearing of a strong man and said expressionlessly, have you broadened your horizons? Chapter 396. A year ago, Long Zishan didn't use any of his family's martial arts skills, but like a cat playing with a mouse, he tortured Long Xiang until he ran all over the martial arts practice field. A year later, he used the Long family's unique movement technique, fist technique, and palm technique. In the end, he was completely suppressed by Long Xiang, and fell to the ground in 2 moves. To Li Qingyang and the others, it was nothing more than a normal operation for their junior brother to do this. After all, he was only 1 or 2 stages lower than them. However, to the direct descendants of the Long family, it was absolutely shocking. Long Padian was so excited that his hands were trembling, and the happy expression on his face couldn't be hidden no matter how hard he tried. If it wasn't for the fact that the competition was still ongoing, he would have definitely turned around solemnly and bowed to Jun Changshao. His son was useless in the Long family and suffered humiliation from his own clan. As a father, he saw this and felt pain in his heart, but he couldn't do anything about it. If every direct descendant of the Long family wanted to establish themselves in the Long family, they had to become stronger. Weak? They deserved to be bullied. This kind of family was very cruel and heartless. But it was also because of this that the direct descendants didn't want to be bullied and ignored by the higher-ups. Only by constantly becoming stronger could the Long family gradually become stronger. In a world where martial arts were respected, it was about the survival of the fittest. Later on, the Long family's patriarch could no longer hold it in and could only accept the second elder's suggestion to send Long Xiang to manage the family business. Although he would be mediocre for the rest of his life, at least he wouldn't be bullied in the family anymore. However, Long Padian never thought that Long Xiang would run away from home, join the Iron Bone Sword Sect, and bring sect leader Jun and a group of senior brothers back before the family competition. Even more unexpected. Today, in the martial arts practice field. With absolute strength, he defeated one of the strongest direct descendants of the family, Long Zishan. Looking at his son's back, he recalled the scene of him squatting alone in a corner and burying his head in his legs every time he was bullied. The Long family's patriarch's eyes gradually moistened. At this moment, Jun Changshao handed him a tissue and said, "My son has made a name for himself, this is a matter of crying tears of joy." As someone who has experienced it before, I can understand. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were stunned. An experienced person? Could it be that the sect leader had a child? He didn't have a damn thing to say. He was just trying to give Long Padian a way out of this embarrassing situation. Sect Master Jun, Patriarch Long did not take the tissue. Instead, he said seriously, "It is my son's blessing to be able to enter Iron Bone and be trained by you." He had said something similar before, but it was nothing more than pleasantries. Now, he was being sincere. Jun Changshao said, "I also want to thank the Long family head for giving birth to such a talented and hardworking son, allowing me to be proud of him." Boom! On the martial arts practice field, Long Xiang kicked down Long Zishan, who was unable to get up from the ground, and then walked out under everyone's gazes. On the way to the Long family, he had thought about how to torture the people of the same clan who had bullied him before. He also thought that it would definitely feel good, but when he really experienced it, he realized that it was just that. The main reason was that he was too strong. There were no twists and turns, so he felt that it was not exciting enough. The competition continued. Long Xiang continued to fight, and defeated the direct descendants of the Long family in the top 8 and top 4 battles. As his opponent was not as strong as Long Zishan, he won easily. Not long after, the final battle of the strongest group began. This kind of battle that determined the champion was usually the most exciting. It was even normal for 2 participants to fight for 3 to 5 rounds. However, in the strongest sect of all time, especially with Iron Bone disciples participating, they did not take the usual path. Bang! 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 When the finals began, Long Xiang used exploding fist and mountain-splitting palm consecutively, and began to beat up the direct descendants of the Long family. In the end, the fourth cousin was unable to withstand it. He was beaten until he staggered back and sat down outside the martial arts practice field. The corner of the Long family's mouth twitched. Actually, when Long Xiang defeated Long Zishan, they already knew that the most valuable large competitions champion was already in his bag. But who would have thought that after the entire battle, that guy didn't even pant? This was definitely a crushing defeat. Ding! Side quest completed. Congratulations to host for obtaining 500 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 16005000. Jun Changshao laughed. After Long Xiang applied to return home and told them about his tragic background, the system gave them a side quest. The content was personally witness disciple Long Xiang winning the large competition of the Long family. The battle of the strongest group had ended, but that did not mean that the large competition of the clans was over. Long Zai. Long Xiang strode onto the martial arts practice field, pointed at a direct descendant of the Long family, and said, "Come on stage and fight." There were many direct descendants who bullied him in the Long family. Although some of them were also in the strongest group, they were not matched, so he naturally would not let them go. The corner of Long Zai's mouth twitched. Although he knew that he couldn't beat Long Xiang, he still walked up with a bitter face. In the Long family's large competition, if a direct descendant of the same clan declared war, even if they were weak, they would still have to fight. This was a rule that had been set a long time ago. Bang bang bang. The moment Long Zai went on stage, he was immediately taken care of by Long Xiang's fists. By the time he was sent flying, his face was already swollen like a pig's head. Long Ziming, come on stage and fight. Bang! 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 Not long after, the direct descendant of the Long family called Long Ziming was also brutally beaten up. Then, his entire body twitched as he lay outside the arena. An hour later, all the direct descendants of the Long family who had bullied him a few years ago, especially during the large competition last year, were all called up by Long Xiang. Their entire family was lying on the ground in an orderly manner. Last year, during the declaration of war, Long Xiang was a punching bag, and was declared war on by the direct descendants of the Long family one by one. Now, he was standing alone on the stage, beating up a group of direct descendants of the Long family like punching bags. Awesome! Too fucking awesome! The grievances that had been accumulated for a long time from being bullied by his clansmen were vented out by beating up his opponents time and time again. Not only did Long Xiang feel refreshed, he also felt that the entire world was exceptionally beautiful. However, it was not exciting enough, not satisfying enough. Long Zi, just as he was about to call out the name of another direct descendant, he was suddenly interrupted. That's about enough. The voice did not come from the martial arts practice field, but from the inner courtyard. For a moment, all the direct descendants of the Long family turned their heads and saw a man about 20 years old leaning against the edge of the door, his face expressionless. Eldest cousin! Everyone exclaimed. Long Padian frowned and said, "Isn't he in closed-door cultivation? Why did he come out at this time?" Jun Changshao also looked over and said, "This person seems to be quite powerful." The system said, Saint Grade Spirit Root, 8th Grade Martial Master. Saint Grade? Jun Changshao frowned and said, "This is a top genius who can compete with the Sacred Spring Sect's Gu Chaozhou." Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others also looked over. If this wasn't junior brother Long's home ground, they might have forced their way out and challenged the top genius of the Saint Grade Spirit Root. Long Xiang's expression changed slightly. His eldest cousin was definitely the strongest existence in the direct descendants of the Long family. Although he had never bullied him before, he had never given him a good look either. Of course. Long Zishuan said, "If you don't have enough fun, you can declare war on me." Long Xiang's brows relaxed, the corner of his mouth raised into a smile, and said, "This way, it will be exciting." Long Zishuan. He stood on the martial arts practice field, pointed at Long Zishuan who was standing in the inner courtyard, and said loudly, "Come on stage and fight." With that said, the the direct descendants of the Long family and the elders of the Long family all widened their eyes. This guy. He actually declared war on the strongest direct descendant of the Long family. Long Padian was also greatly surprised, but when he saw his son's proud expression, he was instead incomparably gratified and proud as he thought to himself, "This is my Long Potion's son, this is my Long Potion's direct descendant." To be exact, this was a disciple of the Iron Bone clan. That's all for today. Thank you for your rewards. Please recommend me for your monthly votes. Chapter 397. The strongest group won first place, and then beat up the direct descendants of the Long family who bullied him one by one. Although it was very satisfying. But Long Xiang felt that it was not exciting enough, not satisfying enough. Simply put, not a single one of them could fight. At this moment, the strongest direct descendant of the Long family, Long Zixuan, appeared and even said that if you haven't had enough fun, you can declare war on me. Facing his eldest cousin in the family, he was in the sky, he was on the ground, and he was even a weak ant. But now, he realized that it was only a so-so. At most, his aptitude was higher than his, and his cultivation was stronger. Since that was the case, what was there to be afraid of? Long Xiang stood outside the martial arts arena, pointed with one hand, and the camera followed through a few hundred meters, landing on Long Zixuan, and said, "Long Zixuan, come on stage and fight." That voice. That expression. Incomparably arrogant. Under the watchful eyes of the Long family, declaring war on the strongest direct descendant made his blood boil, and he also felt that it was very exciting. Seeing his son so domineering, Long Padian was not only gratified, but also proud. Shwa! Long Zixuan stepped on the complicated dragon wandering steps, dragging an afterimage as he stopped on the martial arts arena, and said, "After leaving home and returning, not only did my cultivation increase, I also became very arrogant." "It's all right," Long Xiang said. "When I was still weak, I was casually bullied by you guys, so I could only go and learn from you. Now that I have become stronger, if I don't show off, would I be able to live up to my experiences in the Iron Bone? Senior brother Long, do your best." Lu Wancher also knew that Long Zixuan was a strong enemy, so she waved her hand and shouted. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others also gave their junior brother an encouraging look. To them, this kind of 8th grade martial master was also a powerful enemy. Junior brother going to fight with him would definitely be the greatest test. Jun Changshao sat firmly on the chair with a smile on his face. With the sect leader's gaze and the encouragement of his fellow disciples, Long Xiang's eyes flashed with an intense fighting spirit. "Can we begin? Come." "Who?" Long Zixuan used dragon swimming steps and appeared in front of Long Xiang at an extremely fast speed. His fist, which carried the sound of a dragon's roar, punched out. As expected of the strongest direct descendant of the Long family, the dragon cry fist he used, whether it was speed or power, was much stronger than Long Zixuan. Boom! The sound of an explosion rang out, and shockwaves flew in all directions. Thump! 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 Long Xiang took 6 or 7 steps back before he could stabilize his body. His gaze was unprecedentedly solemn. Long Zixuan's speed was too fast. Although he could catch him, it was difficult for him to dodge. He could only use his body to resist. Fortunately, he had gone through all kinds of tempering of his physical body. After receiving the punch, he was only pushed back a few steps. More importantly, he was wearing soft silk armor. The elders of the Long family were dumbfounded. Some of them were only 3rd or 5th rank Wuzong, and it was extremely strenuous for them to take a punch from Long Zixuan. Not only did that brat catch it, he even looked as if nothing had happened. Wasn't his physical body a little too strong? Shwa! Long Zixuan rushed over once again, using the dragon roar fist. The fist shadows and the sound of the dragon roar spread out in the martial arts practice field. Bang! 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 Long Xiang's strength was a little lower than his. Although he could dodge one or two attacks, it was impossible for him to dodge all of them. He was hit several times and was pushed back to the edge of the martial arts practice field. "Are you still arrogant?" Long Zixuan asked. "Ka ka ka." Long Xiang shook his head and shoulders. Enduring the pain from his body, he grinned and said, "This is exciting, this is satisfying." Long Zixuan frowned slightly. Each of his attacks was more than 12 or 13,000 pounds. This guy should be injured after taking them continuously. Shwa! Long Zixuan attacked again. This time, he used an even stronger dragon palm. Powerful palm prints instantly spread out, and the strength soared to 150,000 pounds. Shwa! 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 Bang! 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 Long Xiang was hit again. He was hit from one edge to another before he finally staggered and stabilized his body. Why didn't he dodge? Because he couldn't dodge at all. The gap between an 8th grade martial master with a sacred spiritual root and a 5th grade martial master like him was huge. The only thing he could do was to resist with his physical body. Eldest cousin is amazing. Look, that guy was quite arrogant just now, but now he's being beaten to the point where he can't fight back. A genius like eldest cousin would definitely be a core disciple in a first-rate or second-rate sect. Does he think he's qualified to declare war just because he learned a few moves outside? The direct descendants of the Long family discussed with joy between their brows. Long Xiang's performance just now shocked them and they couldn't accept it. Now that they saw him being beaten, they were naturally happy. Long Padian muttered, "My son, although you're not Long Zixuan, you've resisted for so long in the martial arts practice field. Even if you lose, it's still a glorious defeat. Even if he lost, it's still a glorious defeat." Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Patriarch Long, don't jump to conclusions so early." Long Padian was startled and said, "Could it be that my son has a chance of winning?" Jun Changshao said, "It's hard to say until the end of the battle. However, with my understanding of Long Xiang, he has a 99% chance of winning." Long Potion's mouth twitched. What was the difference between a 99% chance of winning and a 100% chance of winning? However, since Sect Master Jun was so confident, Patriarch Long couldn't help but think, could it be that my son really has a chance of winning? Under the suppression of strength, martial skills, and aptitude, he really couldn't figure out how his son could win. On the martial arts practice field, Long Zixuan didn't attack for the time being and said indifferently, "Your physical defense is not bad." Long Xiang's entire body was sore, but he endured it and smiled proudly. In the Iron Bone sect, there are many senior brothers whose physical bodies are stronger than mine. Is that so? Long Zixuan looked at Li Qingyang and the others below the stage and said, "After defeating you, I really want to fight with them." "Sorry." Su Xiaoma said, "We never fight with people who lost to junior brother." "That's right." Li Fei said, "Someone who can't even defeat junior brother Long doesn't have the qualifications to challenge us." The two of them spoke arrogantly, causing the direct descendants of the Long family to be furious. Long Xiang, that brat, was clearly being tortured by his eldest cousin. Didn't this Iron Bone disciple see that? "All right." Long Zixuan retracted his gaze and said, "Then I'll defeat you first before challenging your senior brother." Whoosh whoosh. As he spoke, a powerful aura emanated from his body. This aura was exactly the same as the move that the second elder had used to attack Jun Changshao in front of the hall. Dragon's Roar of the Nine Heavens. Eldest cousin brother is getting serious. Ha ha ha, that brat is going to be unlucky. The direct descendants of the Long family immediately laughed at his misfortune. The Dragon's Roar of the Nine Heavens was a spirit energy type martial technique, and its quality had already reached the early stage of the supreme grade. In the Long family, the only ones who could comprehend this martial technique were the elders and the patriarch. Long Zixuan was able to cultivate it at the age of 20. It could be seen how powerful his aptitude was. Interesting. Long Xiang's lips curled into a smile. You can still laugh at a time like this? Doesn't he know the power of the dragon's roar of the 9 heavens? Whoosh whoosh. At this moment, Long Zishuan waved his hand and quickly spun in the air. The psionic energy that erupted also stirred up. Dragon's roar of the 9 heavens. Both of his palms struck out, and a dragon beast dragged its long body out of the energy circle with a roar. In terms of power, although it was weaker than the second elder, it could still be said to be powerful. As for the strength it carried, it had also reached 170,000 jin. This strength was comparable to the 8th grade Wuzong. The powerful dragon beast swept over. Long Xiang stood in place without moving. His mind entered the space ring and pinched the strength-increasing talisman that he had stored for a long time between his fingers. Pa! The talisman was crushed, and his strength skyrocketed. Ta! Long Xiang took a step forward, and the attributes of his body erupted. In an instant, his black hair fluttered in the wind. He angrily shouted, "You are not qualified to challenge my senior brother." Whoosh whoosh, the explosive fist cut through the void. Under the violent air waves, it seemed to have turned into a roaring tiger, pouncing towards the lifelike dragon beast. At this moment, dust flew, covering the sky and the sun. At this moment, when dragons and tigers fight, one of them will definitely be injured. Chapter 398. The moment Long Xiang raised his fist and punched over, the elders of the Long family all stood up in unison, their eyes filled with shock. That aura, that strength. It was definitely not weaker than Long Zishuan's dragon roar of the 9 heavens. Long Potion's expression suddenly became sluggish, and the muscles on his face also became stiff. My son is only a 5th grade martial master, but he can actually unleash a power that is not inferior to Long Zishuan's. How terrifying is this? Jun Changshao, who was sitting at the side, had a calm expression. Long Zishuan was very strong, he could not deny this. Among the disciples he had brought, only Lu Qianqian and Yixingchen could fight against him. However, this did not mean that Long Xiang did not have a chance to reverse the situation. If he wanted to win this match, he could only rely on the strength-increasing talisman that he had given him. Long Xiang, whose spiritual root had been upgraded to peak grade, and his cultivation had increased to 5th grade martial master. His normal strength was close to 80,000. And with a twofold increase in strength, he could naturally make up for the difference in cultivation between him and Long Zishuan. Let's fight. My disciple. Boom! The explosive fist that contained close to 200,000 kilograms of strength was like a fierce tiger pouncing on the gathered dragon beast, ruthlessly tearing it apart. Thump. 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 Long Zishuan's figure explosively retreated, his expressionless face filled with disbelief. The blood in his body boiled, and he almost couldn't help but spit it out. If his move was broken by a stronger force, it would injure his internal body. A few days ago, Jun Changshao had used the Scarlet Sky Raging Flame Slash to break the second elder's dragon roar of the 9 heavens. Shwa! Long Xiang did not let him off, and used the cloud-treading steps to rush over. His eyes flickered with a monstrous fighting spirit, and his entire person was like a rampaging tiger. I'll chop. I'll chop, chop, chop. Swoosh. 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 In an instant, crescent moons of energy dragged along streams of light, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Dragon roar of the 9 heavens is very strong. Then I'll show you today what a spirit force type martial skill is. If there weren't any restrictions, Long Zishuan could definitely rely on the dragon's swimming steps to dodge all of them. Boom! 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 The crescent-shaped flowing light shot out like a cannonball. Spirit energy spread out, forming a lingering mist that filled the entire training field. The direct descendants of the Long family were dumbfounded. A battle of this level was definitely stronger than the previous finals of the strongest group. Shwa! Long Zishuan rushed out of the fog. Psionic energy erupted from his body as he executed the Long family's martial arts technique again. What dragon wave fist? What dragon palm? As long as he knew it, he would use it all. Long Xiang relied on his iron bone martial arts to contend against him. The two of them instantly engaged in a fierce battle in the arena. Sometimes they would cross paths, and sometimes they would separate. The camera was also constantly changing. Bang! 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 In a short period of time, they had exchanged dozens of blows. As the fight became more and more intense, the spiritual aura that enveloped the martial arts practice field became denser and denser. In this battle, only then could it be considered exciting, only then could it be considered satisfying. Boom! The two of them exchanged another blow, and Long Zixuan was at a disadvantage. He took a few steps back again, and his expression became even more serious. Although he was proficient in many types of Long family's martial arts, Long Xiang's strength was stronger. If this continued, he would definitely be defeated. Shua! Long Zixuan raised his hand and bit his thumb. This, Long Padian and the Long family's elders saw this and suddenly widened their eyes. Long Xiang's expression became dignified. Although he couldn't cultivate the Long family's martial arts, he also knew that the Long family had the strongest martial arts called Illusory Tyrant Dragon Palm. Could it be that his cousin had already comprehended this martial arts technique that was infinitely close to the sacred level? Ho. At this moment, a majestic aura emerged from Long Zixuan's body and instantly transformed into an existence similar to a Dharma idol. Phantom Soul. Jun Changshao was surprised. The system said, "This is not a phantom soul. This is a profound spiritual force-type illusion technique." Ho. Long Zixuan's aura continued to release, and the illusory Dharma idol became bigger and bigger. In the end, it reached a height of 4 to 5 meters and stood in the training field, emitting a powerful aura. Illusory Tyrant Dragon Palm. He shouted angrily. Blood flowed from the thumb that he bit, covering his entire palm. He squatted down and slammed it on the stone floor. Ho. The Dharma idol behind him raised its right hand and pressed down on Long Xiang. The force and the air violently rubbed against each other, instantly forming an even thicker mist. Oh my God! My cousin actually comprehended the strongest martial arts technique of the Long family. The direct descendants of the Long family exclaimed. The Long family's elders were overjoyed. Long Zixuan, who was in his early 20s, comprehended the illusory Tyrant Dragon Palm. This was definitely a huge surprise. Long Padian frowned. When that palm pressed down, its strength had already skyrocketed to 300,000. As the level of the martial arts technique continued to increase, the explosive power was also unimaginable. For example, the supreme-grade illusory Tyrant Dragon Palm was already very powerful. Even Long Xiang, whose strength had skyrocketed, was inferior in front of it. Jun Changshao thought to himself, the Long family really has a lot of martial arts techniques. Following Long Xiang to the Long family, he realized that although the disciple's strength was good, the sect lacked high-level martial arts techniques. Exploding fist and mountain-splitting palm were fine at the beginning. However, in front of a high-level warrior with many martial arts techniques, it was not enough. In the end, they could only rely on their strength to increase their attacks. With a critical hit, a normal attack was no problem. The key was not there yet. Therefore, he had to consider more about getting some high-level martial arts techniques for his disciples to cultivate. Actually, it wasn't that the Iron Bone didn't have any awesome martial arts techniques, such as the Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash, but they had just been spawned and hadn't been equipped with them yet. Ho. The palm print whistled down, as if Mount Tai was pressing down. When Long Zixuan used his strongest martial arts technique, Long Xiang could have dodged in advance, but he remained motionless. You mocked me for not being able to cultivate the Long family's martial arts. You thought that I was not worthy of being a direct descendant of the Long family. Today, I will prove to you that even without the Long family's martial arts, I can still cultivate other martial arts and fight against those who have learned the Long family's strongest martial arts. Whoosh whoosh, the large hand pressed down like a dark cloud pressing down. Boom, the ground shook violently, and the stone slabs were instantly lifted up. The people of the Long family who had witnessed the entire process all widened their eyes and mouths, their eyes filled with disbelief. Long Xiang raised his palms to the sky, catching the falling palm. Above him, there was a stream of light lingering and enveloping his body, forming a defensive layer similar to a barrier. Iron Bone's defensive martial arts technique, seal cover. Long Zixuan's expression was extremely ugly, but he raised his palm again and slammed it on the ground. The Dharma idol that had formed retracted its large palm and pressed it down again. Boom, under the pressure of the force, the stone slabs instantly shattered. Long Xiang used the seal cover to block the illusionary tyrant dragon palm that weighed 300,000 jin once again. Long Zixuan's face flushed red as the blood in his body boiled violently. Ah! He shouted loudly and raised his hand to strike the ground 3 times in a row. Whoosh whoosh! The Dharma idol raised its large hand and also struck Long Xiang 3 times. Under the explosion of power, the stone slabs more than 10 meters around the martial arts practice field were all shattered. Wah! Suddenly, Long Zixuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, and finally, he sat on the ground. The Dharma idol behind him, as his mind weakened, instantly disappeared into nothingness. It's over, Jun Changshao said. Although the illusionary tyrant dragon palm was very strong, forcefully using it with the cultivation of a martial master would not only consume a lot of energy, but it would also bring a huge burden to the body. After 5 palm strikes, not only was Long Zixuan's body hollowed out, even his meridians suffered different degrees of backlash. Huff huff, he sat on the ground and lowered his head to breathe weakly. Ta! A pair of feet appeared in his field of vision. Long Xiang stood in front of his eldest cousin, who he had once regarded as the sky, and said, "You lost." Long Zixuan, who didn't even have the strength to raise his head, squeezed out a bitter smile with difficulty and said, "You won." Chapter 399. Long Xiang won, but he didn't feel good about it. Because Long Zixuan lost because he had forcefully used a high-level martial skill, and not because he had personally defeated him. In fact, from another perspective, to be able to withstand 5 attacks with the seal barrier and remain unscathed, it could be considered a victory. As soon as Long Zixuan said the words "you win," the battle came to an end. All the direct descendants of the Long family were stunned. The strongest direct descendant of the Long family had used the strongest martial skill of the Long family, but he still couldn't defeat that guy. This was simply unimaginable. Plop! Long Xiang sat down on the ground and grimaced, "Big cousin, your illusionary tyrant dragon palm is too strong, I almost couldn't withstand it." Long Zixuan, this guy was definitely acting to save some face for himself. Yes. Long Xiang sat on the ground paralyzed, giving his eldest cousin some face. After all, they were from the same clan, and there was no deep hatred between them. Even the direct descendants of the Long family who were lying neatly together were only beaten up by him, and did not suffer any internal injuries. Long Potion's tears flowed down his face as his hands trembled violently. My son won. He won against the strongest person in the younger generation of the Long family. At that moment, as a father, he was proud and proud. Jun Changshao laughed, and his sweaty fists relaxed. When Long Zixuan used the illusionary tyrant dragon palm, he looked extremely calm, but in fact, he was panicking inside, afraid that his disciple would not be able to withstand it. The system said, "This disciple of yours is weaker than Long Zixuan in terms of strength, but his physical body is far stronger. Furthermore, he used the seal barrier, so there is no problem for him to resist the spirit energy type illusion technique. Why didn't you say so earlier? It's not bad to make the host nervous." Fuck. The Long family's great competition had ended. Long Xiang had won first place in the strongest group and defeated the strongest direct descendant of the Long family. At the same time, it also proved the Iron Bone's martial skill. Although its level wasn't high, it wasn't inferior to most of the Long family's martial arts. In the courtyard of the West Courtyard, Su Xiaomao rubbed his hands and said, I also want to fight with that saint-rank spirit root Long Zixuan. Li Qingyang shook his head. This direct descendant of the Long family is too strong. If we don't rely on the talisman given by the sect leader, it would be very difficult for us to win. Yes. It was difficult for them to contend against Long Zixuan. At least, their physical body was stronger than the other party's physical body. High defense, sometimes, it could also be considered an attack. For example, Long Xiang had exhausted Long Zixuan's energy by forming a seal barrier. Yi, who was sitting sat S's why was the Knight Emperor so confident? SSS martial arts. Long S long longs longt, S to uses longs, SSS. Do you have more than our Knight Emperor? If it was Yi Xingchen who had fought with Long Zixuan earlier, he would have been dazzled by the use of all sorts of martial techniques. Unfortunately, this was the Long family, Long Xiang's home ground. It would be difficult for Knight Emperor to show off. Son. In the study room, Long Padian said with his hands behind his back, don't go back to the Iron Bone, stay in the family and continue cultivating. Ha! Long Xiang was dumbfounded. Long Padian said, Father and the elders are old. It's time for you juniors to take responsibility. Father, based on your performance yesterday, I believe that no one will object to you inheriting the position of patriarch in the future. Long Xiang was stunned again. He had never even thought about being the head of the family. After all, the gap between him and his eldest cousin was too big. He didn't expect that his father would think so highly of him. Stay here, I will explain to sect leader Jun, Long Padian said. Father. Long Xiang said, as long as I am a disciple of the Iron Bone sect, I will be a disciple of the Iron Bone sect forever. Please let me follow sect leader back to the sect to continue cultivating. That's right. The position of patriarch was very tempting. But Long Xiang had never thought about inheriting it. He only wanted to follow the sect leader wholeheartedly and live with his senior and junior brothers in the sect. Sect leader Jun can nurture you, but our Long family also needs a successor. Long Padian said solemnly. Plop. Long Xiang knelt down and said, Father, I only want to follow sect leader Jun, eldest cousin, and the others are also qualified to be the successor. Bastard. Long Padian reprimanded. As a father, he had his own selfish motives. Naturally, he wanted to pass the position of patriarch to his son and not to his nephew. In the past, Long Xiang's performance had disappointed him, so he didn't consider it. Now that his strength had increased and he could defeat Long Zixuan, he naturally had plans to make him the young patriarch. Those elders definitely wouldn't have anything to say. Unfortunately, Long Xiang didn't want to take over a family that was comparable to a fourth or fifth rate. He was more willing to stay in the Iron Bone clan. Although cultivation was tough and he would occasionally be hit in the face by balls, there was warmth and love there. It was his second home. Father, don't say any more. Long Padian said, I have already talked to sect leader Jun. He has already taken his disciples away. From today onwards, you will learn how to run a family from me. Sect leader left. Long Xiang's body trembled and he stood up and rushed out. When he arrived at the courtyard, he didn't see the sect leader or his fellow disciples. He only saw a piece of paper on the table in the living room. Xiang, be a good descendant of the Long family. When you take over as the patriarch, I can show off to outsiders that the current patriarch of the Long family was nurtured by me. Remember. A disciple of the Iron Bone clan for a day, a disciple of the Iron Bone clan for a lifetime. Don't chase. This is the sect leader's order. The person who signed it was Jun Changshao. Sect leader. Long Xiang held the letter in his hand and couldn't help but cry. Hua hua, dark clouds covered the sky and heavy rain poured down. Looking at Longyang City from the wilderness, under the lingering rain and fog, it was as if it was covered in a thin layer of gauze. On the official road, Jun Changshao brought his disciples and walked in the rain. Because of the protection of his spirit energy, the moment the water droplets came into contact with his clothes, they were bounced out. Sect leader Li Qingyang said, "Junior brother Long isn't going back with us. After all, he is a direct descendant of a large family. How can he stay in the Iron Bone clan forever?" Jun Changshao said. Sigh. Su Xiaoma said rather sadly, "I didn't expect that coming to the Long family with junior brother Long this time would be a farewell." Lu Wancher cried, "Sect leader, I don't want senior brother Long to leave. I hope that everyone can be happy together forever." Jun Changshao raised his head and looked at the dark sky, his emotions complicated. All good things must come to an end. Everyone fell silent. A year's time was not too long, but these disciples, amidst the laughter and arduous cultivation, had long cultivated a deep relationship with each other. Now that they were separated from Long Xiang, their emotions were complicated. At this time, Su Xiaoma raised his head, pointed to the front, and exclaimed, "Sect leader, look." Jun Changshao, Li Qingyang and the others all looked over, and saw a man who was drenched standing on the official road in front of them. His hair was wet, and there were water droplets on his eyelashes, but his gaze was firm. Who was it? It was Long Xiang. Sect leader. He clenched his fists and knelt on the ground with a plop, causing waves of water to splash out. He shouted loudly, "Unless you expel me from the sect, Long Xiang will always follow you, and will always be a disciple of the Iron Bone clan." Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji and the others laughed. Lu Wancher, whose eyes were filled with tears, also laughed through her tears. Jun Changshao shook his head and walked over. Then, he summoned the historical record bamboo scroll and patted his head, saying, "The men of the Iron Bone clan have gold under their knees, stand up for me." Shua! Long Xiang stood up and straightened his back. Jun Changshao turned around and shouted towards Longyang City, "Patriarch Long, this is your son's own choice. I, Jun Changshao, will take him away today." Sigh. On the city tower, Long Padian let out a long sigh. "Son, I respect your choice." Chapter 400. Last night, Long Padian invited Jun Changshao over. First, he thanked him properly, then he talked about Long Xiang's future. After all, he was a direct descendant of the family. As a father, he naturally hoped that his son would inherit the position of patriarch in the future. On this point, Jun Changshao could understand. Who wouldn't want their son to have a high position and not be a disciple in a sect? Patriarch Long, Jun Changshao said, "Neither you nor I can decide Xiang's fate, the path he wants to take. Naturally, he will have to choose it himself." Thus, the two of them made a small bet. Bet on whether Long Xiang would stay in the Long family or follow him back to the Iron Bone. In the end, Long Padian lost the bet. His son gave up the right to inherit the position of patriarch and followed Jun Changshao back to the Iron Bone. This was his choice, and the patriarch Long would not interfere. Son. Standing on the city gate tower, looking at the group of people who gradually disappeared into the rain and fog, Long Padian muttered, "Father hopes that you can continue to grow stronger." Long Xiang, who was walking on the official road, seemed to have heard his father's thoughts, and said to himself, "Father, the reason your son chose this path is to continue to break through and become stronger." On this day, the son of the patriarch of the Long family, the most official one, followed the Iron Bone sect leader. He was no longer pretending to be a disciple of the Iron Bone, and had truly treated himself as a disciple of the Iron Bone. All disciples, listen up. Jun Changshao, who was walking on the rainy road, shouted, "Follow me to conquer the world, fight out of the falling star continent, and fight all the way to planet Namek." All the disciples were startled. What kind of place was planet Namek? Iron Bone. Jun Changshao and the disciples rode on the Hurricane Wolf and returned. Including the trip back and forth and the stay in the Long family, it had been 7 days. During this period of time, the disciples were doing missions in the mission pavilion as usual, and everything was normal. However, just as Jun Changshao sat down in the main hall, Li Luoqiu handed over a letter and said, "Sect leader, someone sent this 2 days after you left." A letter of challenge? Jun Changshao opened it and took a look. There were beautiful words written on it. The content was 9th day of the Lunar New Year, I'm here to visit Sect leader Jun and the Iron Bone Upright Sect. The signatory was Shi Jingxian. Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said, I forgot about Miaohua Palace's visit. That's not right. That woman was born with an eye disease. How could she know how to write? Moreover, her handwriting was so beautiful that it was almost comparable to his own. The system was speechless. While praising other people's good handwriting, he also praised himself. This was really shameless. Hall Master Li. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and asked, What day is it today? The 8th day, Li Luoqiu said. Damn! Isn't that tomorrow? Qingyan. Jun Changshao said, Bring the disciples to clean up the sect. Make sure it's clean. Yes. Li Qingyang accepted the order and went down. Long Xiang, who had just made the most important choice in his life, was sweeping the outer courtyard with a broom. Father. If I had known earlier, I would have stayed and been a young master at home. A visit from a fourth-rate sect was a big deal. Jun Changshao ordered Lu Wancher to prepare more high-quality food. When the time came, he would prepare some delicious dishes to entertain the guests. Sect leader. Lu Wancher pouted and said, Wasn't the food I made before delicious? Jun Changshao pinched her puffed-up cheeks and said with a smile, What I mean is to make even more delicious food so that the guests will have endless aftertastes. No problem. Lu Wancher's eyebrows relaxed, and she smiled brightly, Leave it to me. Jun Changshao left the canteen, pointed at Su Xiaoma and said, Stinking brat, hang up the red lanterns in the main hall for me. All right. Su Xiaoma began to get busy again. It could be said that because Miaohua Palace was about to visit, all the Iron Bone disciples were busy. In a short period of time, Iron Bone was cleaned up, red and green. Coincidentally, when Family Head AI came to visit and saw the red ribbon on Iron Bone's signboard, he was stunned. When he walked into the sect and saw the red lanterns and red ribbons hanging in the main hall, he felt even more apprehensive. Sect leader Jun, sitting in the main hall, the first thing AI Shang said was, You're getting married? Pfft. Jun Changshao, who had just taken a sip of tea, spat it out. He wiped the water from the corner of his mouth and broke down, I don't even have a fiancé, how can I get married? Could it be that a disciple is getting married? Impossible, as the sect leader, I'm still a single dog, how can I allow someone to get married and show off their affection to me? If the disciples heard this, they would definitely cry out loud. It seemed that the sect leader couldn't get rid of his single status, and they, as disciples, had to accompany him for the rest of their lives. Single dog food? Family Head AI was at a loss. Jun Changshao said, To be honest, the palace master of Miaohua Palace will bring her disciples to our sect for a friendly visit tomorrow. I see. Family Head AI understood and smiled, Palace Master Shi's looks are extraordinary, quite compatible with sect leader Jun. Why don't we ask the Blue Mountain sect to be the matchmaker? Jun Changshao shook his head, Does Family Head AI think that I, the leader of a small 7th-rate sect, am worthy of the leader of a 4th-rate sect? The system said, It's rare for the host to have self-awareness. Brother N. AI Shang said, First you fought the Sacred Spring sect, then you defeated the Murdering Shrine. Sect leader Jun is now famous in southwest Yangzhou. If you're not worthy of the palace master of Miaohua Palace, then no other young talent is. Am I that awesome? I didn't even know. After being praised by Family Head AA, sect leader Jun felt a little smug. However, he really didn't have any thoughts about the palace master of Miaohua Palace. It wasn't that he disliked the other party's eyesight, but that he still needed to develop his sect and didn't have any plans to date for the time being. These words, it was as if he wanted to date and girls would come to love him to death at any time. Did they not know that he had always been single based on his strength? Family head AI. Jun Changshao said, "Let's get down to business." As soon as they got down to business, AI Shang immediately handed over a spatial ring. Not only were there banknotes inside, there were also all kinds of herbs and seeds. The AI family gave him a fixed amount of money every month. The Iron Bone Beast materials store made a huge profit every day. Sect leader Jun's wealth was accumulating day by day. When he was poor, he often thought, why don't we rain money? When he was rich, he began to worry, how am I going to spend so much money? Why don't I just put it in the toilet and use the banknotes to wipe my ass? The system said, how despicable. With Miaohua Palace's visit, Jun Changshao still needed to do one more thing, and that was to put away all the things that shouldn't be seen. This was to prevent them from accidentally leaking and bringing unnecessary trouble to the sect. The next day. Early in the morning. At the foot of Iron Bone Mountain, a group of female cultivators dressed in fluttering white clothes appeared. They looked like otherworldly fairies. The leader was Shi Jingxian, the palace master of Miaohua Palace. Although her eyes were still empty and lifeless, her outstanding beauty couldn't be hidden. Palace Lord. Li Er supported her and said, "We've arrived at the foot of Iron Bone Mountain." Shi Jingxian touched the scattered hair on her forehead and said shyly, "Li, this Palace Lord looks very tired after rushing all the way here, right? Palace Lord is still so beautiful." Iron Bone sect leader and his disciple got lucky. Li said, "No, no." Shi Jingxian said, "Help this Palace Lord tidy up my clothes, so that Jun Changshao doesn't see me as a joke." Li Er was speechless. It wasn't that the Palace Lord hadn't gone on a long journey before, but this was the first time she paid so much attention to her appearance. Could it be that she had feelings for that guy, so she would dress up for him? Damn it! Wasn't that guy just a little handsome? What charm did he have to make the Palace Lord care so much about him? That wasn't it enough that he was a little handsome? P.S. 4 and more. Let's talk about the update situation. Because it had been a burst of updates for the past few days, it couldn't be done at midnight and had been pushed to the day. For the next few days, it was the same. If there was an update, it would be released. At midnight, there wouldn't be too many manuscripts. Finally, I'm looking for recommendation tickets and monthly tickets.